Okay, it's like we're on, everybody. Just give me a second while I finish loading the things that I need to load now that we've got that started. But welcome, everybody, to Game Time with Doc, Lurch, and Greg. We're going to go ahead and, while we're thinking about it, let me just do a refresh here on my hosting monitor. Just what the? Oh, a second there, it looked like they changed their layout just a little bit, is all. Okay. I'm just waiting to see if it's showing us live. Does look like it's showing us live, so as soon as it stops this little thingy swirly, we'll do a sound test. Waiting to see if it's showing us live. Does look like it's showing us live, so as soon as it stops this little thingy swirly, we'll do a sound test. So check 1 2. Waiting to see if it's showing us
Check
live.
1 2.
Does look like it's showing
Round
us live.
one.
So as soon as it stops this little thingy swirly, we'll do a sound test. So check 1 2. Waiting to see if it's showing us
Check
live.
1 2.
Does look like it's showing
Round
us live.
one.
Yep. We all piped in there. Okay. And then let me bring in my chat monitor window. Put that over to the side so I can watch that. I don't want to max it out. I hate that auto.
Take it to the max.
I hate it when it auto full screens it if you go too far into the border. It doesn't need to do that. Okay, got that. And this will be the first time I'm logging into Twitch with my new phone because my old phone died on me. So we may or may not have that part to monitor this week. We'll see. GamerSys, log in. Okay, yeah. Relatively painless. It automatically sent me an approval code and I got right in. So
yeah,
that's good. That's good. It's nice when it actually works.
Right?
Which you can count on about, one time in a row. Okay, well, welcome to Game Time. Just to introduce yourselves, although hopefully by now most of you don't need to really have too much of an introduction to us. I'm Doc, Clyde Starr, the cross promotions director and panel director for Eclectic Endeavors. Right beneath me is Greg Pullman. He is our director of tabletop gaming and kind of our website manager right now too. He keeps up the media, a lot of the media presence. And then we've got Philip or Lurch right below that. He is the co-chairman this coming year, and also the long-time running director of electronic gaming. In fact, all but the first year of game, he's been running the electronics. So all those great console games in the back of the gaming room, that's him. And he has just about every console you can imagine, and he's always looking for more. So what we do,
I haven't got my hands on an Xbox Series X, but it's gonna happen.
It's on your list. It's on your list.
It's on the list.
Yep.
It's on the list.
I had no doubts of that. Yeah. So,
hopefully,
but he's got VR units. He's got old Genesis type systems. He's got everything else coming in. He's got some of those composite units that emulate like 5 and 10 old systems.
I've got the Sega that predates the Genesis, the Sega Master System.
The Sega Master System, yeah.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see is a ColecoVision.
I got one of those too.
Do you bring the game?
I haven't set it up for people to play it game, but I sometimes will bring some of the really old things for people to see for like a little museum thing, especially in the earlier years. I haven't brought it much lately because
Yeah,
gets
you got so
a
much
lot of
else to
stuff.
handle. You got so much else to handle, and there's only so much room. And only so many donated TVs. I know I donate one every year. But we still get several big screen TVs back there, but you run out of room and TVs after a while.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so anyway, what we do here is we try to remind you that this game guys are still around, still working for you. We are working on bringing you the 2020 date, or 2022 dates. We, in fact, will be meeting on that in the beginning of September to do some more discussions on that. So, as always, our meetings are always open to the public. So if you want to come down to the creamery on September 5th or 6th, whichever is the Sunday. Let's see, take a look here. The 5th. On September 5th, you can always get your input in with everybody else on what's going on for game coming up next year. So that's just a quick reminder. Anyway, we're going to jump right into it. We've got quite a few topics to go over this week, including, of course, the return of Supergirl for the rest of her final season on the CW.
Yep.
So I'm going to dive right on in. Let's see what I've got queued up as our very first topic. I do believe it's one of Philip's. Let's see here. Halo Infinite release date. I think that's you,
Yep.
Philip.
It's me, and this is kind of my deadline, I guess, for my goal of getting an Xbox Series X is I need to try to get it by December 8th. That is the release date for Halo Infinite. They just gave out that today. It leaked earlier in the day, but then it was officially confirmed later in the afternoon, along with a new trailer, a story trailer for the game, featuring a new character named Commander Lurch, a green. I don't know. I am probably horribly mispronouncing it. We'll get to see more later. It shows a little bit of her when she's younger and getting rescued by the Spartans, by some Spartan soldiers, when she's being surrounded. And then it kind of has like a little bit of a time jump showing her as an adult, as a Spartan herself. So, as a commander. And so, looks like she's training some new Spartan recruits at the academy. So they're doing a lot more. They're making more Spartans, basically, which I think is going to help with the premise of it being Halo Infinite. I'm not sure how it's going to.
Looks like they got a specialty Xbox and controller for it too.
Yes. I was going to get to that in a second. But yeah, we got a little bit more information about it and some information about what they're calling Season 1 of the multiplayer section. So, I was a little bit down on Halo for a while, but I've been keeping an eye on this new Halo, and it's looking really promising. It's looking really neat to me. So I've recently gone back and I've replayed the original trilogy of Halo games, which I played way back in the day. But then I played 4 and 5 for the first time. I've never played 4 and 5 before, but I played 4 and 5 just recently in the last few weeks. And I think Halo 4 might be my favorite right now. And now I'm pretty hyped up for Halo 5, or Halo Infinite, I mean.
Well, and
after
Halo,
playing 4 and 5 and the other trilogy.
And Halo is really the game franchise that kind of put Xbox on the map, isn't it? Isn't it?
It is.
It's one of the biggest
the original
ones
Halo
that they ever
came
had.
out. It is their absolute biggest franchise that
That's what I thought.
had. I mean, the brand of Xbox was built on the back of Halo. I mean,
that was
honestly,
my point. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've always had, like, the original Xbox launched with Halo Combat Evolved, and it was the big game that really made the Xbox, blow up in popularity. If I remember correctly, it was the second game to use twin. It was the second first-person shooter game to come out that used twin analog sticks for how you control your character. The first one being time splitters. And I have to tell you, Halo did it a lot better than Time Splitters did. I went back and tried some Time Splitters recently, and I was like, whew, this is rough.
Well, the first one out the gate is almost never the best. Usually they have to work on it a little bit.
You want the second one to be a huge upgrade to the first one.
It's usually the second or maybe the third that gets you really going.
Yeah. The Quest 2 is the big Quest VR system that is getting a ton of people into VR that weren't before, you know? So it's the sequel usually that gets, when it comes to new tech, new concepts. Anyway, like you were saying, along with the new trailer, the new story trailer for Halo Infinite, finally a release date. Was it December 8th? It's a little later than a lot of people expected. A lot of people were expecting November. But you know what? December 8th gives them time to get that last bit of polish on it and still hit the holiday season. Now, I don't remember if I mentioned this before. It will be launching without a co-op campaign. It'll have campaign, but it'll be single player. And then without the Forge mode, which is the mode in the game where you're able to customize maps. Those two will not be out at launch. They are going to release later. They say the roadmap is going to put the co-op campaign in 3 months later, and then the Forge 6 months later, 6 months after launch. We'll see how they actually stick with that. There's some controversy about it.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that before.
Okay.
All right.
And then the last thing I want to say on this subject, the last thing I want to say, did you scroll down and show the new Xbox? They have a special edition 20th anniversary edition. Yeah.
I went through the pictures, but we can do it again.
Okay, the limited edition console is the celebration of the 20-year anniversary of Halo.
It's a really sharp-looking controller.
The controller and the Xbox both look slick as hell. I'm going to try to get one of those ones.
I'm not even an Xbox fan, and I want that controller. I mean, come on. That controller's awesome.
Yeah, right?
I mean, that looks cool. You know, very, very gold-plated, military, shiny. Add a little bit of red tinting to it, and it'd be a perfect, like, Iron Man controller.
Well, you know, I was going to say, if you somehow didn't know what an Xbox was, that looks like a drone remote that Master Chief would use, or some kind of mine detonator.
And even the numbers up there, the 117, that's
Master Chief's
identifier code, Sierra 117.
Yeah, but like I said, if you added just some red accents to that gold, you'd have an Iron Man controller. Because it's very, very similar to the gold accents in Iron Man's suit. So
yeah, although it's got a bit more green than Iron Man's suit, but yeah,
a little bit, but still, it would totally pull it off.
Well, the gold is matches with the kind of the golden color of Master Chief's visor that he has.
The faceplate.
Yeah, the faceplate.
All I know is that is a sharp controller. So it's all designed around
his armor. Yeah.
That is a sharp controller. I'm not even an Xbox person, and I like that controller.
Yeah, and anyway, so that's all I had to say. I want to get the fancy controller into Xbox. They're pretty damn slick.
Okay, we got a lot to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and hurry on to the next thing.
Yep.
Now we got two separate websites for this one. This one's Greg's Magic the Gathering update.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, though.
Yeah.
According to a screenshot from Twitter in the second article, Magic the Gathering very recently, the 24th, dropped that, if not the announcement of the thing itself, a release date. There's going to be a Magic the Gathering animated series coming in late 2022. It's going to be featuring one of the established planeswalkers, what's his name, Gideon Jura, and I've said this before, I haven't played Magic in quite a while, but I was excited for the idea of the planeswalkers as playable cards when that came out, and this isn't the direction that I was hoping an idea like this would go for. but it looks like they're committing strongly to it. The first article notes that the Russo brothers have backed out of it over creative differences, but losing that, they've swapped in a fellow named Jeff Klein, whose known works include several Transformers cartoons, along with creating both the 2001 Men in Black animated series and 2002's Jackie Chan Adventures. I love Jackie Chan Adventures.
Jackie Chan Adventures.
Yeah, very, very stylized action, very consistent style. I recall not thinking much of the Men in Black cartoon. Even at that age, it felt very beige, monster of the week kind of show, which works for some people, but I also remember it looking really good.
It looked really good,
And thinking back, I can definitely see
the point was for it to be a monster of the week type of show. So they hit what they were aiming at.
Yeah, kind of like the movies
just
themselves.
Wasn't for you. Yeah, just wasn't for you. Yeah. So that's good. So that's a nice person to step into the Russo brothers' place.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what that's going to bring, especially now that I have Netflix again. If it had been me, I would have liked to see something more along the lines of Death, Love, and Robots or American Horror Story, insofar as Magic the Gathering covers so many different universes, so many different planes. You've got Dominaria, you've got Ravnica, you've got Kamigawa, Mirrodin, such an array of unique stories that could be told. I think it would be fun to have either a bunch of short stories, like 1 hour episodes, or maybe a limited series of like 4 to 6 episodes about just this one story that happens in Mirrodin, and then there's one story that happens in Yawgmoth's dimension, I forget what it's called, and so on and so forth. But committing to the character-driven story following one of the Planeswalkers is probably a good idea too. They've also got story editor Steve Melching, working on this, and he's got credits on Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars and one of the Batman animated series.
Oh wow!
So it's good. It's good to see they've got some chops behind this.
Yeah, that sounds like some major chops, because the Batman animated series have been so powerful that they've actually managed to modify the comic book universe, which doesn't normally happen. That's how Harley Quinn got her start.
Yeah.
She got her start in the Batman the Animated Series, and she became one of the most popular new villains ever to hit Batman.
Yeah, and the one that he's credited with is not the original Batman the Animated Series, it's The Batman, which is the one that has the really weird, kind of gorilla-shaped Joker, and it was okay. It didn't have the charm that other series had, but it wasn't bad.
It was definitely a more kid-centered version of the show.
A child-centric one, yeah.
And it had kind of an anime theme to its combat designs.
Very much so.
Yeah. I remember that.
I was a big fan of Batman the Brave.
The Joker had dreadlocks. That's very that's like a 50s era Batman, but made like in 2015 or something.
It's a Batman
the one that
team
had
up.
The Music Meister?
What was that?
Music
Wasn't that
Maestro?
the one that had the... I think his name was the Music Meister. I remember it was Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, Neil Patrick Harris played Music Maestro. Yeah. But yeah, no, that was The Brave and the Bold is the one where Batman teamed up in every episode with a different DC hero.
Yeah.
That's the thing I like, because you got to see a bunch of these second and third string heroes you don't normally get to see running around with Batman.
And Brave and the Bold has one of my favorite Batman lines where he's fighting against, he's like up against a bearded lady, and the bearded lady's like, "You wouldn't hit a woman, would you?" And Batman says, "The hammers of justice are unisex," and then punches her in the face.
Hey, if you're willing to hit me, I'm willing to hit you back. It's kind of how it works.
Yeah,
that's very camp Adam West era.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's good news. And in fact, we got a lot of stuff talking about things that are like Wizard of the Coast kind of projects. Let's go ahead and move on
Yeah, let's roll
because
on.
my next thing is actually the Dungeons and Dragons movie has wrapped its filming. So they co-director John Francis Daly has said the live action movie has finally wrapped filming and it is going to be out for 2023 release. So we still got a little bit of wait to get to the movie. But among other things, it is supposed to feature at least one character based on the original Dungeons and Dragons cartoon characters. So at least one of those characters is going to be in it, and it's got a list of some of the people that are in the movie somewhere here. Let's see. Chloe Coleman, Jason Wong, Daisy Head, Hugh Grant, Sophia Lilas, Regine Page, Justice Smith, Michelle Rodriguez, of course, and Chris Pine.
Very nice.
So it's got a good list of actors to go into it, and this being a live action version, they've got a lot of guff for the live action versions of D&D in the past, and that's partly because they never quite target what the major group that wants to go see it is. Like the original Dungeons and Dragons movie, the people that really wanted to go see it were all us longtime players, but they were targeting new potential players, and they didn't bother to tell anybody that. And so as long-term players got in there and says like, yeah, Jeremy Irons phoned this in. He didn't even really work at it, and not so sure about this one at all. But there was some nice, tropes in there. Like the dwarf had a great dwarven personality, and the way he kind of gruffly, good-naturedly argued with the elf and everything. But a lot of gamers were really disappointed by that one, and it took until like the third one, which was made for TV on Sci-Fi, before anybody even had anything really nice to say about a D&D movie. Live action, anyway. So they've had an uphill climb. And there's still copious arguments all over the internet about how they should handle a D&D movie. I even heard a funny one that I said I would spend money and break COVID to go see, which was where they have the Muppets sitting around playing D&D, and then when they switch to the characters, you have the actual big name actors playing the characters.
I saw that meme.
Instead of the Muppets, but then have the Muppets voicing the actors, so the actors are sitting there lip syncing while the Muppet voices are coming out. So you think of like someone like John Batista with Miss Piggy coming out of her mouth, or Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa was the one they suggested.
Yeah,
as a barbarian, but with Miss Piggy's voice.
Well, Miss Piggy would be a barbarian. I mean, come on. I was like, I would go see that. Just for the amusement factor, I'd see that. So there's so much as far as and then people have argued: do they do a generic story? Do they pick a story from one of the novelized, established campaign settings? How do you do it? My own personal recommendation is similar to the Muppet recommendation, but a little more serious, where they have two parts to the story. They have people in their regular lives going through their stresses and stuff, and then they meet up in the game, kind of like how the Gamers is done and stuff, but in a more serious
bent. That's what I was thinking of.
And then come in, and then come in and have your players sessions, and switch over to the characters doing everything, but in a more serious bent than what you get from the Gamers, because the Gamers is of course a spoof. I just think they could take that concept and seriously apply it. If you're going to advertise D&D, what's the essence of D&D but people playing the game and putting themselves into the story? So
Gamers was a spoof, but it still had a lot of heart.
It did.
I'm encouraged by the cast listing here, especially Justice Smith. If for no other reason, good actor, but also having been in Detective Pikachu, that's a really good way to draw people who got attracted to that IP, especially young kids, to come into this one if they see, the person who was the lead in that Pikachu movie that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be the ace up the sleeve for this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's going to be an interesting kind of walk in the park for gamers to go see that. But of course, like I said, we got to wait till 2023 to actually get to the theaters and get our eyes on it. So keep your eyes out.
When do you think we'll get a teaser trailer?
I don't know. But speaking of teaser trailers, I did not actually put it on any of my topics for this week, but I did plan on mentioning it. The teaser trailer dropped this week for Spider-Man Homecoming.
But no, it's Spider-Man No Way Home.
No Way Home. Yeah, No Way Home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I saw that.
And the teaser trailer came out, and it looks fantastic. For it being a teaser, there's actually a little bit more detail than you usually find in a teaser.
Yeah, it's 3 minutes long.
Yeah, I can't wait till a full-length trailer comes out, if that's what they consider a teaser. Because I mean, you get to see Richard Molina's Doc Ock in it. You get to see a pumpkin bomb. You know, there's a big electrical storm that could be the Shocker. Looks like there might be a sandstorm mixed in with the electrical storm, which could be the Sandman. Of course, Vulture might be in on it. So they might even, like, a lot of rumors have been going around, they might introduce one version of the Sinister Six in the final movie. And that would be awesome. Because I was one of the ones that was majorly bummed when they canceled the original Sinister Six movie.
And they got Doctor Strange doing all kinds of stuff in this.
And Peter Parker, like, he's doing that wish spell, and Peter Parker's like, oh, well, nobody will remember? What about this? And this, and this. And he's like, stop messing with my spell, Peter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they have that total...
I'll have to...
Go ahead.
I'll have to dig into that because I didn't see the full teaser trailer. I just saw the, like, 15 or 30-second bit that was on Hulu.
Oh no, there's a full teaser now. So,
yeah. Although I did hear rumors that they were going to try to do an Into the Spider-Verse-esque thing, which it looks like they're doing because they're bringing in actors who played characters from the previous iteration.
Yes. They kind of show in the trailer a little bit that, everyone knows who Spider-Man is, that he's Peter Parker, and so he goes to Doctor Strange and asks him to cast a spell to make everyone forget his identity. And the spell goes awry, and then they start experiencing multiverse stuff, and Doctor Strange tells them how, he says something to the effect of, we know surprisingly little about the multiverse. And then there's, like, things opening them up, and then they got the Doc Ock showing up. Yeah, we got these Inception, like, Doctor Strange things, like, the city of New York looked like a donut for a little bit.
Or that train folding in around itself.
Back to,
there was, like, duplicates of a train whirling around while Doctor Strange was waving his hands with Spider-Man on the train. It was wild.
Also a good callback to Avengers, not Endgame, Infinity War, because of, I looked through 1,600,000, however many different alternate realities.
Yeah.
It's almost like calling back to that and being, this is the fallout of diving into that many alternate universes.
Yep.
14,605 different outcomes.
That was it.
Yep.
That is a number that I still remember.
Which is the total concept behind the What If series too. So, it's all about exploring those different alternative universes. What happens if a single thing or just a couple minor things are changed, and then see what the permutations of that are. And we'll be covering that later on in our regular media spoiler section, so we won't get too into it right now. Okay, well, so we covered the D&D movie, and I also did my obligatory mention of the Spider-Man trailer because I forgot to put up a posting for it. But let's go ahead and move on.
All right.
Next, we should have the YouTuber accused of $1 million retro game sale being a scam. This is one of yours, isn't it, Philip? Yeah.
Yes. So Kotaku has an article up right now about a YouTuber making about an hour-long video accusing of. If people aren't aware, recently retro games have been selling for millions of dollars. They're doing like comic books where they're like, original factory packaging, perfect conditioning. They're packaging them up and sealing them and giving them grades. But this YouTuber is making some point that he thinks that they're scams, showing some conflicts of interest. Is a good way to put it. So. It's a long article, so I don't want to go through the whole thing, but I want to say something like, in 2017, it reports here, in 2017, a mint condition sealed copy of the original Super Mario Brothers sold for $30,000. And in 2019, that same copy sold for $100,000. And this month is sold for $2 million. That is a massive, it says it's a 6,500% increase in just 4 years.
Right.
It's
the new age of comic books,
insane how much it's growing. Yeah. But here's some interesting things. There's some conflicts of interest where, like that game, the game that was sold for millions of dollars was bought by like 3 different people that are buying it as they're like shareholders basically. So they each own like a third ownership of the game. One of the buyers in the auction was the co-chairman and founder of the auction company. Also, the company, and also the company that graded the game is
one of the others.
Also is a partner of the auction house. They're partners. Let's see, what was it? So Heritage Auctions is the one who auctioned it. But then we got Wada Games, whose company had only recently founded, rated the condition of the game, and was certifying others for auction at Heritage. So a new company that was recently created was the company that was rating and certifying the games, and are partners with Heritage for games being sold on auction at Heritage, and then being purchased by one of the by the co-chairman of Heritage. And there's a lot of other. That's just one of the conflicts. There's quite a few of these. Now, I don't want to spend the whole time going through all of these, but it is painting a specific picture that is not looking too good about the validity of these multi-million-dollar auctions for these retro games. It looks like it's I can't say for sure it's a scam, but it's looking like it may be a scam to artificially inflate the values in retro games.
That's what I was thinking. It
it's
definitely
like a variation
looks like a bubble, but at the same time...
Yeah, it's like a variation on insider trading.
Yeah, or cryptocurrency, where you create something and then hype it for the sole purpose of driving up the value and then selling.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what I'm thinking.
But at the same time, if you're willing to spend money on a thing for the sole purpose of collecting it, I still don't understand collector culture. If you're collecting something for the sentimental value, or because you like the IP, cool. But if you're buying a game with the intent of having it sit on a shelf or sit in storage and just accrue value, that value being whatever the next person down the line decides they're willing to pay for it, I can't wrap my head around that. And it's their money, so whatever.
Basically, collector culture is a variation on future markets. Just like, how our futures traders try to determine what the price of pork belly is going to be next year before the farm report comes out, and you find out like 70% of the pork in New Zealand might have died out or something.
Sure, but pork bellies are a thing that people use.
It's a future
shrink wrap game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said,
So
things have value according to who ascribes value to
I
it.
yeah.
So from
And
that perspective, it's kind of hard to even call it a scam, because if somebody's willing to pay for it, then as long as it's a legit copy, then it is what it is, and
yeah.
they're getting what they paid for.
But that's
Well, I
just
think
it.
I think I think more of what it's doing is, um, games. I mean, games that are collectible are already, a fair price, fairly higher price, but reasonably, I think. But with things like this happening, it's creating this fervor amongst the community that makes everyone think, even people who aren't already collectors, now go, oh, here's a spot for me to make a ton of money, and
Create
go out and buy them to sell them. And so it's creating this like collector value economy. Like most video game collectors, not all, but most video game collectors are buying video games for the purposes of playing them, right? Like I
yes.
own a huge video game collection. Only one game in my collection is purely for being in a display case for people to look, and it's because it's the very first Metal Gear, which is my favorite game franchise, and it's the MSX version of it. I have a digital copy that's legit that I legally purchased that I was able to buy for a lot cheaper and can play that version, but I do have an original hard case with the book and everything and a display of the original game, which I bought for like $200 several years ago. Supposedly it's worth like $500 today. But I have like a limit on that kind of thing though. But now,
Sure.
games that used to you could buy for like $80, the PS2 games you could buy for $80, as someone at the bottom of this article, are now going for $300 to $500 suddenly. And I think it's because these people like this are making it look like games are super valuable. So people who
Well,
aren't really gamers just want to buy for the money in hopes of then selling it later, then increases the scarcity of the games for people who want to actually collect them,
they're creating an
which is then
artificial
inflating it.
demand. The other
Yeah.
thing, in addition to the artificial demand, the thing that still makes it kind of like a scam is because they're using their own insiders to grade the quality of the work, which means that calls into question if it actually meets any kind of real grading standard, or are they just
Yeah.
artificially assigning a grade to it? Just like you wouldn't want if you were going to go buy a copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Spider-Man from a comic book shop, you know, probably the single most valuable comic book in the world, uh, you would not want the owner of that shop being the one that certified the grade of the comic book.
Yeah.
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 Because you couldn't trust
or
him
his
to be
partner
impartial.
in business.
Right, you couldn't trust him to be impartial because he's going to immediately say, "Oh yeah, best grade I can get away with," and maybe squeak it to the one grade higher than that, just because he can add another zero to the end of the price tag,
Yeah.
and you can, and so that's where it's edging into the scam mode. But the other thing is, like I said, creating an artificial demand where no actual demand exists. Just like when you go to an auction, like some of the eBayers that were fined in the beginning days of eBay, where they put up an auction, and then near the end of the auction, the seller would go in on a dupe account and sharpshoot their own auction just to get it up higher. And then if they won, that's okay. They do the back out and give the auction the ability to go to the next highest bidder as a default. They're doing that right now with the people who are buying storage units.
Ugh.
C storage units, same thing. They're going in and they're auctioning it, and if they're not going to recoup their losses on that storage unit for lost rent with a reasonable profit, sometimes the shady storage unit dealers will go in under another account and create false bids in the last like hour of the auction just to inflate the price, and then if they happen to win, you're getting a
They
meal
pay
like
themselves.
an hour or two away. No, they're not paying. If you happen to win an hour or two away, they'll back out, and then they'll contact the next highest bidder that was real and sell it to them for their next highest bid because they bid it up as high as they possibly could. And if they were to ask why the other bidder backed out, that bidder would say, "Oh, they accidentally bid," or they didn't realize something like, "Oh, they didn't realize they'd have to go all the way to Indiana to pick up the storage unit," or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's clearly marked all over the place, and if you're accidentally bidding, you don't sit there and rebid and rebid and rebid and rebid through the last hour. An accidental bid is one or two clicks. You're not going to
Yeah.
keep rebidding and stuff, but it's a way to try to inflate that final price. And this is, of course, before like eBay eventually added in that reserve pricing, so that if a auction didn't at least make a reserve, it didn't sell at all. Well, before they had reserve pricing, this was the way that they would jimmy their own auctions to make it look like it was going for more than it was, and they would establish a false value sense to the product. And that's what they're doing here, or that's what they're alleged to be doing here, is creating a false sense of value based on the current market prices.
Well,
So
it's gross.
it is.
Gross.
It's gross, and it's a terrible way to basically cheat people out of their money, because there's a lot of people out there that try to, oh, look, I've got an extra couple $100. I could go buy like $200 worth of lottery tickets, or go to Vegas and put it in a slot machine. Something to just try one of them random chances to turn that $200 into something. Or I could go bid on a storage unit, or I could go maybe invest in a comic book or something.
So this is in the last few years, and I'm confident it's thanks in part to things like this. The last few years, used video games have been just skyrocketing in price, and it's making it harder for guys like myself who like to buy old games and still play them, because I might be willing to spend $50-$60 on an older game, but I don't want to spend $300 on an older game. And that's the reality. There's been a few games that I thought about buying, and the physical copy was $400, and so I just went online and found a $10 digital copy that I downloaded.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's cutting out the people that before were actually looking for the game to use the game, or to add it to their display collection, but they didn't want to break the bank to do it. They just wanted to, it's nostalgia. It's one of the first games they may have ever played, so they want to get a copy just to remind themselves, just like the business owner that frames the first dollar they ever made. It's a nostalgia thing. But then these other people come in and they just start inflating. It's the reason I stopped playing Magic the Gathering. It's the price guides came out and it just was too expensive to play the game competitively, because nobody, they stopped gambling a card on every game. They stopped all the things that was making it kind of interesting, because adults were coming in and cheating little kids out of their most rare cards because they could.
Yep.
And you shouldn't be able to do that just because you can.
Yeah.
So but that's the thing about it. It's a market demand economy that we live in, but artificially manipulating that market is shady at best.
Yeah.
We do what we must because we can.
Yeah. And I sue, don't you? No. Those are our philosophies nowadays. Okay, we're going to move on from this, though. Next up is, I think it was the Broken Token, and that's Greg, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes, I happened on this through Instagram. I guess Broken Token's Twitter and Instagram accounts, and probably all their other social media, are linked. And the CEO of Broken Token, a fellow by the name of Greg Spence, has been accused of sexual harassment over a long period of time by a former employee, apparently the first employee of Broken Token besides the CEO himself. Her story is linked in that very first link in the article, speaking up to protect others. So you can read her account of the situation. It is very detailed and spans the course of several years, during the course of which she apparently was not well compensated for her work, and at some point even agreed to be the CEO's girlfriend and work without pay, with the arrangement, I guess, that she would be taken care of, but also wound up working overtime and going through all sorts of turmoil and challenges and having to work under a person who effectively controlled every aspect of her professional life and many aspects of her personal life. And at least one other person has been on Twitter, Trisha Sidney, confirming the allegations. Broken Token, Greg Spence put out a missive that you can see in that blurb there on screen.
Yeah, I'm reading it now.
Which the more I read it, I agree with everybody who's responded to it in comments. It's, at best, it's a non-apology. At worst, it's implying that other sexual misconduct was happening as well, and he's just haggling over the definition of the word assault or abuse. Companies that have worked with, and for those who aren't familiar with Broken Token, they produce wooden organizer inserts. I have several of them myself. I'm a big fan of their work.
They're high-quality inserts, yeah.
They're very high quality. The instructions to assemble them are super clear, and I'm a huge fan of their stuff. Broken Token has actually reposted some of my Instagram photos with my permission, accounting to how good their quality is and how easy it is to take apart and reassemble games for easy setup and breakdown. So yeah. I'm really disappointed to hear this and hope they clean it up as quickly as possible.
More serious gamers use Broken Token than use the actual insert that come in games right now. You know?
Yeah, I bought the Broken Token insert for Terraforming Mars, and the organizer cost almost as much as the game itself, which is a testament to how much I respect their work and what a challenging game that is to play. As good a game as it is, it's so much easier to run with the organizers when you can take stuff out of the box.
Or something like Terra Mystica, or...
I was thinking about using them for my Legendary game, my Marvel Legendary game.
They have a Legendary organizer, which I've used for the Marvel Legendary and the Alien Legendary. They've got some generic, what they call bits boxes that can go with anything. They just have varying numbers of slots depending on what size bit box you get.
Their Caverna insert is probably one of their most highly rated products, because trying to play Caverna without their insert is almost a nightmare.
Yeah, some of which are officially licensed by the people who produced the original games, and you can tell at a glance which ones are officially licensed because they'll include the exact name of the game, like Dead of Winter, whereas the Terra Mystica organizer will be called Mystic Terrain, like something that you look at it and you look at the box and you go, oh, I know what that's for, but they haven't been licensed, but it's still a product they can design and legally distribute.
Yeah, the Caverna one's officially licensed, and they actually use the word Caverna. And
yeah, we'll see how long that lasts, because specific companies are calling them out over these allegations, and at least one, Evil Hat, who's produced the Dresden Files RPG and has quite a few good titles under their Evil Hat, has specifically asked them, I don't know if they can legally compel them, but have asked them to stop selling organizers for their own products. Companies are cutting ties with them, companies are calling them out, and at least one has said, hey, stop selling accessories to our games. So this is going, and the initial allegations came out a week ago, so this is hit very hard, very fast.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I don't like about his supposed apology retraction, and the thing that indicates he doesn't maybe understand sexual harassment laws or anything, is that last line of this paragraph here that says, I am confident that the close and consensual interaction I had with others in and outside the workplace never crossed the line of sexual harassment or assault. But that's just it. Sometimes just having it in the workplace is enough to have it cross the line according to the laws right now. You know.
Yeah, and that's the line that.
And as the boss, you can't cross that line.
Yeah, and as I forget whether it was the tweet or, let me double check that tweet. Yeah, Tricia Sidney in her Twitter reply confirming the initial allegations that said you can't report something to HR and have them do something when it's the owner and boss. So all the normal
avenues,
identity politics that we talk about, especially as they pertain to the workplace, are escalated 100 times when it's between a regular employee and the head of the company.
Yeah, there's just too many layers of executive power between them that there's ain't no way that the little, not using it as a negative term, but the little plebe, the peon in the workforce has no recourse. You can whistleblow all you want, but you're whistleblowing about the boss.
Yeah, and Broken Token probably isn't big enough to have a board, but it's so important for bigger companies to have a board of directors so that there is a mechanism for, hey, this one person is making the rest of us look bad. We can pool our influence to say, no, you need to cut this shit out or leave. But that doesn't appear to be the case here.
Executive oversight.
This person did. Yeah. So this person, Ashley Taylor, who made the allegations, did the only thing she could do, which was deal with it for as long as she could and then leave when better options came along. And even past that point, there's accusations of Spence stalking her at her new job working booths for the other company that she signed on with. And having to be escorted to her hotel room.
Yeah, she basically backed her into a corner, and she had to go to the poll of popular opinion to help her out because she had no other recourse. I mean, it's terrible that these things are happening, and there's more and more of it coming to light. I mean, we've been talking about the Blizzard Activision thing, and there's this, and there's all kinds of others that come up, and it's not just people crying wolf. There are people that are actually getting away with this kind of stuff because of the disparity between the ownership level executives and the peons, the cubicle workers. You know, cubicle workers can basically take it or leave. That's their options, and a lot of times they can't afford to leave. So it makes it really hard.
This is a better than average situation for the accuser, since she's already gotten gainful employment elsewhere, and it's good to see that she's doing well under the circumstances. But
yeah, it's nice that she left and then is bringing it to light.
I'm disappointed to hear this generally, but especially from a company that I've gone to bat for so many times.
Yeah, because you don't want your favorite companies that actually produce good products to fall by the wayside because of mismanagement like this. It produced a good product. It's an excellent product. I mean, Broken Token is practically industry standard for these kind of inserts now. And yet, this could bring that whole company to its knees. And how long till we get another company that actually produces as good an insert? I mean, hopefully those hex ones that we were looking at might help, but
yeah, but even those aren't designed to fit into the game boxes themselves.
And they're not that specific to the games. Where, a lot of the broken token stuff, there's a lot of research that goes into some of the bigger, more complex games so that they can exactly match it to the token insert board.
Yeah, and the Broken Token does have competition like Game Trays. In fact, that Kickstarter that I talked about a couple months ago, my father's work, one of the Kickstarter stretch goals was we're going to include a set of Game Trays organizers in there. So they do have competition, but nothing that's on the same level of, like, you think of competitors to Walmart and it's like, oh, Amazon or Target. There's nobody that's on the same tier even as Broken Token.
Well, it's like, for instance, for equivalent in the gaming industry, it'd be like trying to compete with Dwarven Forge and their terrain.
Yeah.
Dwarven Forge is the name and terrain. And, Wormwood and some of them others are coming out with some other stuff now. But nobody's quite to the level of interlocking full three-dimensional hand-painted terrain like Dwarven Forge. These are the Dwarven Forge of gaming inserts. And it's
the last thing I have to say on this is a post from GAMA, the Game Manufacturers Association. They posted on their website the day after the initial allegation, standing in support of Ashley, and talking about currently being in the process of revising their policies to really crack down on these kinds of incidents. And actually, I can put that in chat, in Doc's channel right there.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Let me allow that, because the auto mod didn't necessarily like it, but that's
Fair
okay.
Enough.
Okay, it's through. Okay. All right, and we're going to go ahead and move on from that because
of the nature of the subject, let's do my next can we go over the Activision Blizzard updates next?
Let me see what I had next for you. Next was mine, but we can go to the Activision first.
Yeah, because it follows in line with the same principles. Activision Blizzard being in trouble for sexual misconduct.
Not only that, this is a recap of stuff we've been covering for
discrimination.
We've been covering this for about a month. So
yeah. So there's I just want to touch on this one quickly. There's several new details that have come out. One of which is there allegedly the HR department, since the lawsuit has started, the HR department's been allegedly shredding evidence.
Oh, good God.
Yeah. There's plenty of things in here. Like one of the updates is that the language in the lawsuit's been modified to include contract workers as well, because that was previously it was just employees, and somehow I guess the argument is being made that employees didn't include contract workers, so they've modified the language in the lawsuit.
Technically, yeah.
That's good. But the biggest thing to me is the claims that they're making efforts to suppress evidence. And one of those methods is by shredding evidence, shredding paperwork. The shredding hasn't been proven, but it looks like enough people have said this, and this information's come out enough that it sounds like it's probably true. Of course, Activision Blizzard, officially, they've said, we are doing everything we can to provide all the evidence that is required, and we're not, suppressing or shredding anything. They're claiming that they're not true, but
And a little known fact
Go
that
ahead.
people don't realize is that professional business paperwork is supposed to be held for like 2 years before you can shred it.
Yeah.
So they're not allowed to just willy nilly shred stuff. That's to prevent stuff exactly like this from happening. You know,
So yeah, they're by law they're supposed to hold on to these paperwork, but I guess they've been the DFEH has said that these actions are willful, malicious, fraudulent, and oppressive.
yeah, and in fact,
So I don't
nowadays,
want to spend really much. Go ahead.
time on it. Nowadays, they not only uh, have to wait at least 2 years to shred the physical paperwork, but they're now most of them are required to take digital copies and keep those pretty much indefinitely for the life of the company, even if they shred the originals. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the Fair Business Reporting Act. So
So yeah, it's some bad folks in power at some of these companies. It's good that this is getting aired. This information is coming out. Hopefully, between Broken Token and Activision Blizzard, hopefully things can start improving for them. Because like
and
I've been reading reports of like these contract workers being, there's one contract worker I was reading about that said that she cried when she got hired, but now she cried when she got hired because she was so excited to be able to be a part of the process, but now feels crushed because of how poorly she was treated. She says that she felt completely expendable, and
even
that's just
more,
not a good environment.
yes, we want to have these things handled, but even more, these people coming forward may inspire other people that have kept silent to
Hmm.
come forward because they need to.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and go on from this, especially since we talked about this for the last month,
Yeah.
off and on.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to it later. Now let me go on to what my next thing was. All right. And Metagames is actually doing a how to play session on this. I don't recall what date it was. But Rune Steel is a Viking themed RPG based here in Springfield, Missouri, the company that makes it. And so our own metagames here down on Sunshine is doing a how to play session with Carl Morgan, the manager of the store running the how to play, or at least he's the one that was advertising it. It might be one of the creators that's actually running it. I don't know that specific. But so this is a Viking themed role playing game. So very kind of Dungeons and Dragons, but not European based so much. It's more Scandinavian. So kind of more like what the dwarves are often based on when you play D&D. Very very Norwegian, Scandinavian. You know, even comedically Swedish Chef type stuff coming through. And I'm kind of interested in seeing where they go with this game. But I thought since they're a local creator, we do a shout out real quick. This is not a big topic to talk about, but you can go to the website, which is runedandsteelrpg.com. And if we go to the About section here, let me zoom this so I can read it a little bit better because my eyesight's kind of poorly. Rune and Steel began as a mod project for a popular tabletop role-playing game. Alas, our craft was foiled and stifled by the trickster god Loki and his conniving mechanics. Again and again, we were thwarted by his cursed incantations. Instead of surrendering as was sensible, we secluded ourselves, and in the mountains of Svartalfheim, our masterpiece was made, or so the legend goes. We are Ryan and and Kale Shuck, a U.S. father-son developer team of two, along with our awesome artist Martin Sober from the Czech Republic, with a passion for Old Norse mythology and culture. So I guess their artist is in the Czech Republic. But they are local developers, as affirmed by Carl over there at Metagames. Their contact information. I don't see like anything there that it would absolutely confirm all of that. But they've got a member section, a forum section. It's all pretty much kind of under construction. I haven't signed up to be a member or anything so far, but you can shop, and it's not bad looking artwork for a beginning product. If you look at some of the covers here, and of course that background of the website is awesome. I like that.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So it would be something interesting to just check out, because it's always nice to support our local creators. And we have quite a few people that have tried to dip their toes into creating board games, card games, and role-playing games here in the Springfield area. I mean, I myself did almost a complete rewrite of an advanced rulebook for the company Cactus Totems, the Mythic advanced book, and I did several game designs for a while there, till I kind of fell out of working on it for now. But I'll probably be back into it. We've got a 417 Game Designers local group off Facebook that's all about board game and card game design. And they used to meet at Metagames regularly, although with COVID, I don't know if they resumed their meetings yet. But they were all people that would come in and play test each other's designs and brainstorm and talk things over. And it was a great community support for designers who want to get started, because just like the self-publishing book market, there's a lot of people that are self-publishing their own games now. So, if you get a chance, check with Carl over at Metagames and see when that open thing is, the open demo and introduction is. I should have gotten the date when I put this on there, but I think it's buried too far deep in my Facebook. I don't want to display my Facebook page for everybody to read.
Fair enough.
I could open it up in another window, but I don't want to go through that extra work right now either. Especially since we're already after 9 o'clock and we've got still more to cover before we even get to our spoiler section of media. So if there's no other further questions about this, like I said, check in with Carl over at Metagames if you've got further questions, and he can put you in contact with the local people who represent them, and go from there. And we'll move on to the next topic, which is Magic deck copyright filing raises a number of questions. I saw a couple of articles on this. Did you bring this one up, Greg?
I brought this one up. I hadn't heard of this story until this article, but the fellow who made the copyright has claimed a specific deck as intellectual property, a specific Magic the Gathering play deck, and a couple of interesting things cropped up as I was reading through. One, the idea of just how difficult it is to enforce IP copyright, to the extent that they give examples in the article, like what happens if you take this deck but you're not using the exact additions of the cards in the deck, or if you take the deck but you swap out one or two cards, is that sufficiently distant from the IP to get you out of that gray area, to the point of talking about how difficult it is to enforce intellectual property law in the first place, especially if you're not making any money off of it. Like, an argument could be made an easy argument could be made, but still hard to get a ruling on if you made that deck and then sold the cards online as a set. But even more of a gray area if you assembled that deck and then won a tournament with it. I don't even know which edition of tournaments this deck is legal for. By the look of the set list that I've seen so far, it's probably a legacy deck. But also, this is not the first time this person, who is named Richard Hovden, has tangled with copyright law. He seems like a bit of a troll at this point, because there's a link close to the end of the article where it says back in 2014 he got into legal trouble. Apparently, he made replicas of MC Escher drawings, but he made them using a microscopic nanoscale lithography.
Oh, wow.
So he basically recreated MC Escher art, but at an extremely small scale. Like, you have to look through a very specific kind of magnifying glass to even recognize what the art is. If you're looking at the art itself through the frame, it looks just like a white background with a black dot in the middle.
Whoa.
And his argument for not being in violation of MC Escher's copyright, of MC Escher's estate, is that he shifted the means by which you have to view the medium in such a drastic way that it could not be called the same work of art, even though the image you're looking at, once you are viewing it properly, is indistinguishable from Escher's work.
Oh.
It's a bit of a serious story, but also kind of silly, because as the article goes into, the odds of a case like this going to court is kind of absurd. It sounds like somebody working the system just to see what they can get away with, or to prove a point about how rigid or how loose the copyright law system is.
I wonder, because I know, like, for the difference between plagiarism and parody, you have to change like a specific percentage of it.
30%.
If he makes the images that small, like a little dot, but then has, a largish, like a white canvas that big, he can be like, 90%, 95% of this piece of art is this white space.
Yeah.
That's an interesting scenario to think about. Oh.
The thing about it is, and I think this will come back up for him, is, and Wizards of the Coast hasn't commented yet, but if they were to exercise their rights, Wizards of the Coast has an exclusive IP right to all the cards in their collection, which means that if he does it as a derivation of Wizards cards, Wizard could invalidate his copyright. They could override it. So it'd be really up to Wizards of the Coast if they wanted to honor his copyrighted deck at a tournament or not. Wizard could make the ultimate choice. But again, it's kind of legal things. Like if somebody did a Lego sculpture, could Lego company come in and say, well, you used our Lego blocks to build it, so we can say yay or nay on whether you can copyright it.
Yeah, they touched on that a little bit earlier in the article. Right below the image that shows the registration form, says this Magic copyright filing is meant to imply that anyone can do the exact same thing on a bigger scale. Similar filings could happen for entire decks, effectively marking them as legally distinct IP, separate from Wizards of the Coast's very franchise. And an IP made of individual building blocks, as it were, of Wizards of the Coast IP, but still a separate idea, a separate interpretation unto itself.
Yeah.
But like you said, how that will hold up if Wizards decides no, this is our property. Our player base, our customers can do with it what they will, has yet to be seen.
Yeah, and then that's the hard part. But because a lot of stuff like Magic cards are considered now and in perpetuity the intellectual property of Wizards of the Coast, not to be duplicated for any professional usage or profit. Like, you can't make proxy cards for other people legally and sell them because Wizards of the Coast owns the exclusive right to do that. So in the same way, you couldn't necessarily do this, but it gets sticky. Like, for instance, if like KFC is well known for their herbs and spices blend. It's supposed to be what makes their chicken the best chicken in the world. I disagree, but that's neither here nor there. But if somebody else
It is
used that,
distinct.
but if somebody else used that specific spice blend in another recipe, they bought the prepackaged spice blend from KFC and used it to make their own recipe. Could they publish it in a cookbook as their own property, even if it's based around that? Like, for instance, could you publish in a cookbook a recipe, and one of the recipe ingredients being Paul Pudeau's Cajun spice blend or McCormick's spice blend? Because those are already somebody else's creation. And that's the thing, it's a gray area. Because it partly depends on, are the ingredients for that spice blend publicly out there? Like, the ones for KFC are not. They don't tell you exactly what's in the KFC blend. But like the ones that are like Paul Pudeau's Cajun spice blend is out there, just not necessarily the proportions.
But if KFC were to somehow sell flavor packets, then I assume the ingredient listing would be on the product, and that at that point, it's kind of fair game. I mean, that's how generic food works, isn't it?
Well, no, because you can't put assorted seasonings and flavorings. You don't always have to specify every single seasoning you use. The real main rule is anything that's generally considered a high allergy risk or a major source of a certain mineral or something that could cause medical problems. But everything else you can put assorted spices for flavor and not have to say, like, okay, there's a teaspoon of cumin and half a teaspoon of coriander and all that. So the rules on that is kind of tricky because they do allow special recipes to be kept secret and still be marketed as pre-made blends.
Yeah,
in that regard.
Yeah, the takeaway is there's a lot of nuance that you would need to be a professional lawyer to dig through, and none of us are that. What I am going to do is link this article to... I'm going to post this link to one of Legal Eagle's videos and see if he would maybe be willing to break this down, because I'm genuinely curious how easy or difficult this would be to abuse or just punch through.
Let me know if he does, because I want to see that.
You need both a legal copyright lawyer, because that's one specialization that lawyers are, is you need a copyright contract lawyer, but you'd also need a lawyer specific to the industry that they're talking about. So you'd need a gaming industry lawyer and a copyright lawyer, and probably at least one other lawyer to help interpret it all. And even then, it would take a judge's ruling to actually make it final.
And the Legal Eagle lawyer isn't a copyright lawyer. I think he's a tort lawyer, but he's covered a wide enough variety of subjects and knows enough people in the biz that if he were keen to tackle this subject, if he were keen to tackle this subject, he could definitely do it. So I'm going to send that his way and see what he says.
Okay.
Sweet.
Let's see. Let's go ahead and move ahead then. Here to the next thing on the list. Okay, we're back up to me. No, we should be doing another one of yours first. Are you doing Saints Row, Philip?
Yes, Saints Row
Okay,
is mine.
let's do you, and then we'll come to me.
All right. So I'm really excited for this one. Saints Row's coming back. Oh, man. I'd heard rumors that there was a Saints Row, but I didn't know for sure if a new Saints Row was in the works. But they put out a trailer for the new. It's just called Saints Row. But they're rebooting the franchise. It's gonna have new characters. It's gonna be, it's gonna be a little bit more grounded than the more recent games. Um, I was reading the article described. They talked about how it sounds like, conceptually speaking, it sounds like it's going to fit somewhere between the realism of Saints Row 2 and the wackiness of Saints Row 3, which could be, they mentioned in the article here at GameSpot that might be the sweet spot for a Saints Row reboot. You'll be playing as a new group of people in Southwest U.S. Looks like maybe a fictionalized version of like the L.A. region, and you're trying to build a criminal empire from the ground up. You're a new up and comer young folks, a bunch of wannabe crooks that are trying to grow something, and it's coming out in February. This February.
Yeah,
I think it was February 25th or something. It's so close. Just a few months away.
they must have really kept a lid on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I hadn't heard
And so
anything leak about this either.
the first official thing I see about it is this thing that came out just today that gave a video trailer, a release date that's just a few months away, and some information on it that looks awesome. I cannot wait to play it. We haven't had a Saints Row game in what feels like an eternity now, and we're not getting a Grand Theft Auto 6 anytime soon, I guess. So, Saints Row.
I don't play
They both
either
have their pros and
franchise,
cons. I
but
love them both.
I don't play either franchise, but I would think I would have heard about any kind of reboot. So this was kept under wraps because otherwise it would be big news all over the internet.
I've only played Saints Row the Third at the recommendation of a friend who's played the whole series and says that the third's the best. And I opened Epic Games today and just the first thing that showed up happened to be an ad for pre-ordering the new Saints Row game. And when I went to the store, I also just happened across what I assume is trying to promote the tone of the game or get the series back on people's minds, because they have Saints Row the Third remastered free on the Epic Games Store through the 2nd of September. So if you're not familiar with the franchise and you want a sense of the mechanics and the tone, you can get a copy of what I've been told is their best game for free.
Yeah.
And if you do like the game, then there it is.
I love all 4 games. They did a DLC pack that I realized I never got around to playing. I need to play it. But the 4 main actual games, I loved all 4 of them. They escalate dramatically. Like, the very first game was kind of like a Grand Theft Auto ripoff. And then the second game was a little bit more serious and a little more, more involved, more dramatic. And then the third game starts getting a little bit over the top, because in the third game, you're the president of the United States. Like, you're a gang leader. You're playing the same character through all 4 games. In the first game, you're trying to become the most powerful gang, and then shit goes awry by the second game, and you have to start over for the second game. And then in the second game, you have to, or in the third game, the fourth game is when you're the president.
Yes.
So the third game, you are like shipped off to another city and lose access to stuff, but you're famous now. You're not just a gangster. You're like the most famous gangster in the world, and people aspire to you. Yeah, you're a brand now. And then by the fourth game, you've been elected president of the United States, and the whole cabinet is filled with your fellow gangsters from of who's still alive from the first game and second game. Yeah, your homies. but then aliens attack, and they trap you in a Matrix-type simulation where you have superpowers fighting against aliens, and the Earth explodes. Like, the actual Earth gets blown up, and you find a still-alive Jane Austen because she was, like, frozen or something like that.
Wow, this is
It
convoluted.
just gets so crazy. Yeah.
See,
And I love how in the fourth one, even though you had the power to fly and shoot things and stuff like that, you got more powers than Superman. You can still pretend like you're in the older games and get inside of a car and drive around if you want, because it still has all the older mechanics. You got a gun that shoots sharks at people. There's just so much insane
shark
stuff
gun?
in that franchise. Yeah, shark gun.
Wow.
Actually, if I remember right, I think what you do is you aim a laser at them or something, and then a shark comes up out of the ground and eats them.
This
Something
sounds like
along those lines.
a drug-fueled bad episode of Robot Chicken. Oh my god.
it kind of is. It's Grand Theft Auto on acid.
Yeah. Grand Theft Auto on acid is a good way to put it.
I haven't played.
It's Rick and Morty play Grand Theft Auto.
I haven't played the fourth one, but I recall in the third one a net battle between digital mech knights, kind of, and I remember one of the last missions in the game being a high-octane building scaling rescue operation where you've got your gang backing you up in like helicopters and stuff, all to the tune of Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler. So that's what they're going for.
Was it the beginning of the third game where you are like in a plane, like up in the air, and there's a point where you like fly out of the plane for some reason, and then somehow you fight your way back to jumping in through the front window of the plane or some craziness like that?
I don't remember that, but there's so many over-the-top moments in those games that very well could have happened. I do remember that the fourth one starts out with you as, I think you're still the president at that point, and you're disarming a nuclear missile while it's flying. You're like climbing up the side of the missile, and what's it? The Aerosmith song from Armageddon, Don't Want to Miss a Thing, is playing in the background while you're saving the world by hand disarming a nuke.
Yeah.
Mid-flight.
So they start off, the beginning games start off more grounded, but still with a wacky sense of humor, and then just gradually get more and more over the top. For this rebuild, or for this reboot, they say they're trying to be, quote, slightly more grounded, while you build a criminal empire. So I don't think we're going to see aliens and superpowers this time, but we might still see some flying jets or something.
Oh my god. I almost want to check that out just for the absurdity.
And we'll see.
Yeah, and you get to create your own character. Now, in the first Saints Row game, you create your own character, but your character is a silent protagonist. He says 4 lines, I think, in the whole game, and all 4 lines, I think, are said with a different voice actor. Because he has a completely different voice every time he speaks. And it's like, every time he speaks, it's like right before like a major boss fight or something. Like they're getting ready you're about to take down this big gang leader, and then your guy will be like, alright, let's go! And then the next time it's like, I want to kill this mother, like an entirely different tone and a different voice each of the times it happens. And that's like the only lines your guys, and like everyone else is surprised, like all the other gang members on your team are surprised because you never talk. But then in the second game, and onward, you create your character again, and then you get to choose between like 6 different voices or something, 6 or 8 voices to choose from to play. And I believe one of them sounded like Ryan Reynolds, or not Ryan Reynolds, like Deadpool. Wow, Ryan Reynolds was so connected to Deadpool now, I'm mixing them up. But one of them I think is Nolan North.
Person.
Yeah,
same person.
I think one of the voices is Nolan North, using his Deadpool voice, if I remember right. Anyway.
All right. Well, I might have to check that one out just for the absurdity of it.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
You're like a drug pusher. Do it. Do it. First taste is
They're cheap
free.
now.
First
They've been
taste is
out long enough that
free.
you can get them for cheap or free somewhere.
Yeah.
First taste is free, then you gotta
Yeah.
pay. No, okay.
That's
We're going to go to
what
the
Epic Game
next.
Store is doing by giving away Saints Row 3 right now.
Yeah, getting it
Right.
back on people's lips.
I guess.
Oh,
Okay.
Building awareness
I forgot.
of the brand. Building awareness of the brand, just like you do in the game.
The most recent Saints Row content we had was called Saints Row Got Out of Hell, where it's about a character stuck in hell and having to fight the devil.
Yeah, a character that had canonically died earlier in the series.
I've just put your face on that Asian guy in the mall that says, "You want a sample?" And then try to stick a toothpick up my nose like a samurai sword. Take a sample now! You want bourbon chicken? Bourbon chicken's not even Chinese. Shut up and sample! Okay.
Alright, so anyone that's a fan of Saints Row, check out, there's a trailer.
Absurdity. Or
that
just
gives you
absurdity.
There's a trailer to give you a sense of the tone and a little bit of the flair. And they say again you'll be able to create your own character.
Wow, I'm gonna have to check that out, guys. Okay.
Good.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay. My flashback this week, for those of us who grew up around Adult Swim or the anime section of our video parlors, Cowboy Bebop is no stranger. Well, it just so happens that you can go on Hulu or Tubi right now and watch all of Cowboy Bebop. So that's my flashback.
Yes.
Instead of doing a movie recommendation this week, I'd recently heard this and I was like, "Wow, no, there's a name that brings back memories." And so, if you want to be like getting into anime, you're a nerd. You've gone into several of other different nerdy things, but maybe you hadn't done the full plunge into anime yet, and you want to see what kind of anime is out there. A great one to check out for complex storylines and just fun, good artwork, a little bit different.
Great ensemble cast.
Yeah, great ensemble cast. Check out Cowboy Bebop, and you've got two options to do it right now. Hulu, for those who have a Hulu membership, you can watch it. You don't have to have the no commercial membership, but you do have to have the minimum membership. Or Tubi, you just have to go through commercials, but you can watch it for free on Tubi. And speaking of Tubi, while I'm at it, I'll also point out that Tubi has a couple of other good animated things that you can check out. They have the original Mask series, which was, something very Transformers era, where they had these cars that kind of transformed, but they didn't like transform into big robots. They would transform from like one duty to another. Like the main car was a wing doored sports car that basically, when the doors would wing open up and kind of expand out, and it would become a mini jet. And the kid had a little companion robot that would turn into a motor scooter for him. And one guy had a Jeep that you get close to the water and it would lift up and out would shoot like a jet ski kind of jet boat with a pressure hose beam that would either shoot water or freezing water at people. So it was an interesting thing, and they all had specialty helmets. And then the bad guys also had their own set of evil vehicles, and the main bad guy for that had a helicopter that would turn into a jet. That kind of seemed redundant to me, but hey, that's what they did, So that's available on Tubi. And then the other thing, just on a completely out there from another side, the Crypt Keeper cartoon from the Tales from the Crypt is also on
I didn't
Tubi.
know there was a cartoon.
Yes.
On Tubi?
Yes.
Was this cartoon made for kids?
Yes.
Because the Crypt Keeper seems like a weird choice for a kids show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they very they
That
saccharined it
said,
up.
I
They
mostly
saccharined it up a
watched it
little
as a
bit.
kid.
Yeah, they did
Same.
saccharine it up a little bit, but it's there, and it's a nice little thing. It's just called The Crypt Keeper. It's a series, so you can find some of these older cartoons on Tubi just to get a taste. Now I'm waiting for them to put something on there like Thundar the Barbarian or Silverhawks or Transor Z, but they haven't yet. um, or like Jason the Wheeled Warriors, but I'll keep looking, and when they do come up, I'll let you guys know because I'm always checking.
The Cowboy Bebop thing is timely because in November Netflix drops their live action adaptation, and
Yes.
live action adaptations of anime are always iffy. The cast looks good; they look the part stylistically and ethically and all that. And Cowboy Bebop being much less of a shonen style anime and much grittier and more
Story driven.
not street level, but in the sense of story driven, and also nobody has outrageous powers. Like the
Right.
at best, you're dealing with a lot of theatrical martial arts from Spike, but
Yeah.
a good martial artist can pull that off.
You got a sharpshooter and a samurai. That's about the extent of
Yeah.
their superpowers there. Uh, and the same thing happened because they also recently dropped, and I didn't get a chance to watch either of them really before I stopped getting Netflix. But they also dropped Lupin the Third live action.
Oh, I didn't hear about that one.
It was just called Lupin, but it's based on the Lupin the
Lupin.
Third anime. So if you look on Netflix, you can find Lupin as well as Cowboy Bebop in live action. And when I go back on Netflix, which I will do eventually, because when Stranger Things comes out, I got to be on that again. Or when they release the other half of Masters of the Universe reboot with Kevin Smith.
They only released half of that?
They
I didn't
released
watch it.
the first 5 episodes were released so far. And they haven't given us a release date for the following episodes. But that does complete a storyline. So it is enough to get through a storyline. They don't leave you like hanging really. They do encourage you to keep watching, but they do kind of close enough of it where you feel like you're not being left in the cold like some of these series do, and then go ahead and get canceled after that, and then you're like, no, like Alphas. Anyway.
Oh God.
Yeah, right?
Oh.
Alphas is one of the most biggest disappointments I ever had because I was all chomping at the bit for the continuation of that, and then I heard, it canceled. I was like, no!
That was the worst way to end a show.
That was painful.
Unplanned.
That was painful.
Yeah. I decided that the world basically ended in that series. That's why there's no more episodes.
So
the bad guys won.
Bad guys won.
Yeah.
Because it was such a great show, and then it left you hanging so bad. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It's like the equivalent of Endgame never coming out. Like Infinity War being the last Marvel movie. Like, well, I guess everyone's dead. That's how Alpha ends, basically.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
and
God.
It sucks. They really should have given us at least like a 2-hour made-for-TV movie to round everything out. Something. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. And I think we're going into our media stuff now because I don't think we have any other established talking points.
Yeah, we got through those pretty well.
It is... Hey, we still have 20 minutes to get through all of our media stuff. Are you going to go ahead and leave us like normal, Greg?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and say goodbye. Go ahead.
Yep, I'll be on the Queen City Cardboard tomorrow morning, like usual, like clockwork. And then who knows where the day will take me.
Right, and then, of course, you'll see Greg back with us here next week. The only week
I'll
you
be there.
usually will miss him is on the third week of the month when he's over at Holdfast Brewing Company. And I like always, if you want to ever get a chance to come in and meet one of us live and talk to us about the show, give us suggestions of things we can look up, you can talk to Greg right there at Holdfast. He'll teach you some small, fast, casual games. You can hang around for the puzzle challenge. If enough people are interested, he might bring in a medium level game, but nothing way too complex, no Caverna or anything like that's coming out.
Certainly not. The tables aren't big enough.
Arkham.
Arkham, Scythe. No, yeah. No, you're just not doing it. But,
All right.
yeah, so you can go see him there. He is, of course, our director of tabletop gaming. And like he was just saying, the administrator, owner, and presenter on Queen City Cardboard, which is pretty much dedicated to board games, card games, and also story-type computer games. That's pretty much what you cover there, right?
Yeah.
Right, Greg?
Yeah. That's the gist of it.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Care.
So check in, and what's it, 10 o'clock tomorrow they usually start?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. So if you're interested, you're up at 10 a.m., go ahead and see Greg there. And then me and Lurch will finish the show from here. So you have a good one, Greg. And let me remember to actually change over our screen this time, which I usually forget to do, to support only 2 hosts. Hold on a second. I got one more place to go. There we go. Now let's see. Make sure that's... Hey! It looks right. All right. That's like the fastest transfer we've ever had. Okay. And...
You're getting it down there, Doc. You're getting it down.
No. They're going to have to change stuff up on me. Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's what happens. You learn how to use it, and then they update it, so everything's in a different place.
Yeah, but you know the definition of an update, take old bugs out, put new bugs in. Okay, we are back to the CW verse. Now, as you may recall, last week Superman and Lois ended for the season. So we get Supergirl back. Hey, so
Supergirl.
We're going to probably talk about Legends of Tomorrow first.
Okay.
And let's see, I've slept a couple times since Sunday, so give me a minute to try to remember where we came in on Sunday.
The guy who clones himself a bunch is now on the ship.
Right, the Bishop reveal. That's
Bishop.
Right. We were hinted at it at the end of the last episode, and I pretty much called that it was Bishop. And Lurch agreed with me. I mean, come on. And so we had the Bishop reveal. Come to find out that, she downloaded the alien that
Kayla, the alien that impregnated
Mick, downloaded him from the cloud, but of course it's a damaged download, so there's going to be no other, at least according to him. They can always change this. He could be lying. He's a bad guy. They do that. So he was brought in, and so this show is kind of revolving a lot around him, although Zari did confront Constantine about his basically evil alter ego and his abusing of the magic, and basically kind of broke up with him, sort of, until he gets his shit straight. And so he's back on the mansion, which could be how they're kind of backdoor exiting Constantine, because Matt Ryan is supposed to come back playing a different character in future seasons, but he's not going to be playing Constantine because HBO is going to be airing a Constantine live action show. And they don't want to have 2 live actions with different Constantines going on at the same time on TV. They could do it if it's TV and movie, but they don't want to do it TV to TV. So,
even TV and movie, they sometimes get a little iffy on it, but definitely.
Yeah, they definitely don't want to confuse people by doing it 2 different. That'd be like running Smallville and Lois and Clark at the same time.
Yeah.
They could get a little confusing. Speaking of which, I just finished rewatching all of Lois and Clark and started rewatching Smallville because I'm going back and hitting all the old Supermans.
Ah.
Hey, Superman and Lois ended. I needed more Superman in my life. And I'm not normally a great, huge Superman fan, but I needed it, so you got to go where the heart goes. um, so they mainly, it focused around Bishop. I don't think, was there any super noteworthy stuff this week that really stood out to you? Nothing's grabbing my brain, but I might be forgetting it because
Well,
some new
so
stuff downloaded this morning.
Bishop acted like he wants to be friends.
Which he's always done.
Yeah, and Ava thought she would interrogate him by pretending like she's the vulnerable one, and he ended up helping her plan the wedding that she's been stuck on. But that kind of led her to kind of a panic because now she's like falling for Bishop's as thinking of him as a father almost, his family. Um, and then he then locked himself in the room with Rory as Rory was going into labor and delivered all 48 of those babies.
Oh shoot! I must have fallen asleep for that
Uh,
part.
oh yeah, yeah. He delivered the 48 babies, and then it looked like, oh, maybe he's like legitimately trying to be a good guy here. But then at the end, he is he takes Rory's earpiece. He steals Rory's earpiece, and then he uses it to talk to Constantine because Constantine's at the mansion trying to, work out this addiction to this blood magic stuff. And then, so he contacts Constantine and tells him he can help him get his magic back, basically. And so Constantine takes another drink of his stuff, and he's like, what can you do, basically? So he does a lot of stuff to make it look like he's trying to be a good guy. And also he's 6% Sarah Lance. So like 94% of him only got uploaded to the cloud of him, and
So they had
so
to
he had to
patch him
use
with
it.
some of her code.
Yeah, he patched himself with Sarah Lance code, which taught him all the fighting techniques that Sarah Lance knows.
Oh geez.
And Sarah's like, of course the 6% that he got for me was the useful parts.
Right. The part she got from the League of Assassins.
Yeah. And so now he can take her in a fight, since he used that 6% of her.
And nobody could before that because she was badass.
Yeah.
I mean, freaking Oliver Queen had trouble taking her on. And he was trained by the League of Assassins.
Yeah. True. And I think that's the big things. So the babies were born, came out of Rory's nose. Bishop is getting some of the people partially convinced that maybe he's not such a bad guy until they realize he stole the. Well, I don't remember if they realized he stole the earpiece or not, but he stole the earpiece and talked to Constantine. So it looks like Constantine was doing a lot of good work at getting over his addiction, but they did this kind of little artistic thing where it looks like he's now being taken over by his inner demon. So it's not really John Constantine right now, it's the inner demon caused by this addiction controlling John's body, basically.
The alternate personality that developed.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he's got schizophrenia. He's got DID, dissociative identity disorder.
That's what it seems like, but a magical version of it, because this
because
magical version was able to fling Constantine. Yeah, it was able to fling Constantine all over the room and through glass and all kinds of stuff, beating the shit out of him.
So one of my long blinks was longer than I thought. I need to rewatch that episode. Jeez. Okay.
So, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. It was a kind of interesting. It was kind of an amusing episode, but those are the big points.
That's part of the reason why we have at least two of us watching these things.
Yeah.
Because some of this stuff, I mean, we have more time when it comes to Legend of Tomorrow. But then the downside to that is because it comes out on Monday, we are overriding a lot of that with stuff we're getting fresh with the Wednesday releases. And that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the Wednesday releases are getting hard to keep up on because there's so many of them, and I only have so much time between work and our stream.
I know. And the first one we're going to go to is the much anticipated return of Kara Zor-El in Supergirl. It was kind of nice. I actually liked this Supergirl episode and how they approached it. They kind of gave Kara a phobia of the Phantoms, which is only natural.
Yeah. She's
And then
having like PTSD flashbacks of the Phantoms.
right,
And
and
her
then
boss is making her write an
that's what I was about to
article
say.
about the
The Phantoms.
Phantoms attacking the city while she was gone.
Yep, and she doesn't know anything about it because that hadn't even been reported to her. And the thing is, the boss isn't even taking into account when she's assigning this to Kara that her cover story of why she was gone was she was deep undercover with like this terrorist guy. So she might have been completely out of touch if she'd actually done that undercover work. So she wouldn't know either. But the boss doesn't care. The boss wants her to cover this story and gives the other story to the Brit. And she came up with that story. Now that story was because of the pollution left over after the DOD was dismantled after Lex took over. And Kara's father jumps in on this one because, of course, he kind of still blames himself for the destruction of Krypton because between him and his brother, Clark's father, Zor-El.
So,
they were
so
the chief
Kara's father's
scientists
name is Zor-El.
Right, and is it Zor-El? Because I thought that's Clark's father, Zor-El.
Clark's father is Jor-El.
Jor-El, that's right. Jor-El and Zor-El, which are brothers, were also two of the lead scientists and their wives. So the two men and their significant others were basically four of the top scientists on all of Krypton. And none of them could basically stop what was going to happen to Krypton. So, of course, Jor-El sends Kal-El to Earth, and Zor-El sends Kara-El to Earth.
Yeah.
In order to save their kids, and Kara also had the extra job of watching out for her cousin, but then her cousin lands way before she does because she kind of gets lost in part of the trip, and so doesn't land until after he's grown up and becomes Superman. Just for those who aren't completely already familiar with the Superman origin story, there it is in a nutshell, and the Supergirl origin story. But he blames himself for the destruction of Krypton. So then he sees how Earth is going down the same path, and actually probably in a more accelerated rate, really, because we're humans. We're extra destructive. We're good at destroying our environment. And so they go to the Fortress of Solitude, and there Zor-El sees that they still have a Calyx unit, which is, of course, the maintenance and protocol droid that Kryptonians use. And so he gets his plan to modify this Calyx unit using all the other various alien technologies they have access to on Earth, which, he partly got the idea from John, because, they had used a lot of that in order to solve problems. And he was going to send this Calyx unit to basically use shrinking technology to shrink, then turn into energy and absorb these giant trash piles in our oceans. And especially this big one that's got like flammable chemicals and stuff on the surface from the DOE,
Yeah.
and they lose control of the droid because it gets to a certain point, then suddenly starts acting like a super magnet, and instead of shrinking everything and absorbing it, everything starts sticking to it, um, like Magneto on steroids.
Yeah.
And
And then he ends up becoming like a giant garbage monster
right,
that at
which,
any second could explode like a nuclear bomb.
and if you're familiar with the comic books, several comic books have done a version of this giant garbage monster. So, I mean, it's been in Ben 10, it's been in Superman, it's been in Marvel Comics. The giant garbage monster is a constant environmental theme that they like to inject into comic books. So this is the most local public service message.
Yeah.
And um, of course, what's her name that it's running Catco right now wants the British guy, I can't think of his name, to run with that story, even though Carr is the one that brought it to her attention. But she wants to put the focus on Lex's mismanagement and put as much of the blame as possible on Lex, because of course a lot of it is Lex's fault. But unfortunately, they find out that when they dug deeper, Lex had covered his tracks by hiring a third-party company to subcontract the removal of the garbage, and thus exonerating himself from blame,
Yeah.
because Lex is really good at that. Um,
Yeah.
he's like the Donald Trump of comic books. But anyway, I'm not going to get into politics here. Not this time. That'll be a rabbit hole. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's a big story, and it gives the idea at the end that the Catco papers and stuff should focus on just like how they built Supergirl's reputation up in partnership. Uh, although neither one actually fully realized it was a partnership; it just kind of happened. Now she wants to get to know all the different members of basically the Justice League and build their
Yeah.
team up, which I think is a very hopeful sign, because that means that even though they have not announced it, one of the underlying reasons that a lot of people have kind of backdoor suspected why they were ending Supergirl is because they might be getting ready to start a Justice League dedicated show,
Yeah.
which I would
They
love to
they
see.
name dropped Super Friends. They name
Right?
dropped Super Friends
They
on this
did.
episode.
They
That was
did.
funny.
That was funny. That was a nice Easter egg. And so I would personally love that to be one of the next CW franchises to put out, is a Super Friends show. And who knows? Instead of there being like Diggle in his own Green Lantern show, or joining the Green Lantern Corps show on HBO, maybe John Diggle will be introduced as a Green Lantern in the Justice League show instead, and we'll have a live. Since we are not going to right now get the Snyder verse Justice League continuing, we're still working on it, but we're not getting it yet. I would at least like to see a good interpretation of the Justice League in the CW, and John Diggle could come out and be our John Stewart of this Justice League.
Yeah.
And it opens up cameos by Barry, cameos by Jefferson, cameos by, any of the others from any of the previous CW shows. You could get Batwoman cameoing in it. You could get Black Canary cameoing in it. Any one of the versions of Black Canary, Mr. Terrific. You could get mecha vibes separate from Barry coming in. So there's all kinds of things because one of the core elements of the Justice League and or Super Friends, which was the cartoony version of the Justice League from the 80s, one of the great things about it was, although you had your core membership, every once in a while you had somebody else show up, like Red Tornado or Black Lightning or somebody to do an episode, or like Comanche Chief. And remember, I used to love that Comanche Chief would show, hello, Chuck, and giant Indian. Okay. That was one of my favorite parts when I was a kid. I mean, who didn't like an Indian that grew giant? It was an Indian kaiju. How can you go wrong? I mean, so for a little kid, that's gold, And so that's what I want to see.
That's the show that introduced me to Green Lantern.
Right?
I was always disappointed when he wasn't on the episode because he wasn't on a lot of them.
Yeah, and that was the show that introduced a lot of people to Hawkman and Hawkgirl, to Green Lantern, to Martian Manhunter. A lot of these characters were introduced first in the Super Friends. We met the Wonder Twins in that.
I was going to say, Wonder Twins, unite!
Wonder Twin powers activate. Form of, shape of. Yes, exactly. And Gleep, because you can't forget Gleep. And then for a while they had those two kids and their freaking dog, which were stupid. Felt like the Scooby Gang had joined the Justice League. I was like, I want the Wonder Twins back. Because they didn't even have powers. I mean.
Oh.
But, yeah, there was some great stuff. And so I see a lot of potential, especially if they plan to keep the CW verse going and growing, because they can introduce a character on the Justice League and or Super Friends show. And if that character becomes popular enough, that character can get a spinoff. So it becomes a spinoff generator.
Yeah.
So I can see a lot of potential there. But anyway, this Supergirl was an amazing episode. I can't wait to see the next one. We did see what's her name that runs Catco suit up in her super powered alter ego. That's kind of a vestige left over by her influence by Leviathan.
Yeah.
I think that's where her powers are still kind of coming from, because they couldn't exactly take them all away for some reason or other. For a plot device, yeah, that's why. And so we're going to see more and more of that kind of stuff come up. I do know, like I said, in the future, Jimmy Olsen's sister is going to be donning the Guardian armor, which could also lend itself to the Justice League. They're getting more contact with the exiled Kryptonians because, Kara's father is now going to go rejoin his wife. But that with that additional contact, that means that any one of those House of L members or related Kryptonians could come over and do a cameo spot. So there's a lot of potential. And so I think that that's what the last bit of the Supergirl series is kind of backdoor doing to us, is they're getting us prepared for the next stage in the CW verse. Because let's face it, when they first started doing the crossover episodes, that's when the CW really started getting good. And I mean, and nobody could deny that Crisis is probably the most epic event to ever happen on TV. I mean, come on. Nothing has been quite as extensive with as many cameos and Easter eggs as Crisis was. I mean, they brought back freaking Burt Ward.
Yeah.
I mean, we had several different versions of Batman, even of voice actors playing the actual Batman.
Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy. Yeah. You had so much going for you in Crisis. And you even, they even crossed over and we saw Nova. We saw a good version of Captain Cold. Uh, we saw all different versions of Barry Allen.
Oh yeah, I think that wraps up the Supergirl story.
Pretty much, because
what's next?
we don't want to go on. Next is Stargirl. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Stargirl. Now, this was an interesting episode, and I know you just barely finished watching it before we started broadcasting, so this one should be the freshest in your mind.
Actually, it was the other way around. Supergirl's the one I finished just before
I thought you said Stargirl.
we streamed.
I thought you'd said
Stargirl I watched.
Oh, you had to go for Stargirl first, huh? You had to jump right into Stargirl.
Well, it's which one I watch in which order is also dependent a bit on when Allie's available to watch.
Because she watches one and not the other.
She watches Stargirl. She doesn't watch Supergirl. And she watches Marvel's What If. So I try to get those two when she's able to watch it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, well, in Stargirl, of course, the Green Lantern left at the end of the last episode. The beginning of but also at the end of the last episode, and during the last episode, we'd heard that the Shade was coming to town. Or was in town, actually. And so we opened this episode with Courtney basically going, "Ha ha, I was right, you were wrong. There's a villain in town." Without trying to truly dance on, Pat for it. But, so they're like, okay, we got to take on the Shade. And we've got her little brother, which is Pat's son and her adopted brother, basically, doing his paper route. Yeah, stepbrother. Doing his paper route and getting beat up by the bullies. And kind of coming home and then basically being treated like an outsider, not part of the inner circle of the JSA. But then he gets a call from his boss at the newspaper route, adding another person to his route. He tries to bow out, doesn't work, so he goes to jot down the information, and the pen he's using runs out, so he goes over and grabs a pen out of Courtney's little pen cup. Well, if you remember way back in last season, when she first gathered up all the vestige items of the JSA and brought them to her house, she had tried to get the pen to do something and it didn't, so she just kind of chucked it into the pen cup. So, and we'd got a flashback earlier where actually the very start of the episode was years before, when the JSA is going into that final battle, and the JSA headquarters and shop is like decorated for Christmas, and Pat's there working on his car, and Thunderbolt is there, which you don't recognize because he just looks like a kind of a nerdy guy. He actually looks like a vacuum cleaner salesman. But he's there, and both him and Pat have been told to stay home and stay out of the fight. Pat, because he's a sidekick and they really only want the main members of the JSA, and Thunderbolt, because his power is too unpredictable. And we come to learn more about his powers later in the episode. But Wildcat 1 comes in and grabs Thunderbolt and brings him into action, but still leaves Pat behind. And he tells Pat it's because Pat's got a child, he's got a family, and that's the most important thing. So Pat needs to focus on that. But then again, several of the other JSA members have kids too, so you don't know. It kind of still seems like they're kind of axing Pat out because he don't have powers, but he's a mechanical genius. If he'd have just built the Stripesy robot earlier, man, he'd have been all over it. He'd been the Tony Stark of their group.
Yeah. Yep.
But so we learned, we find out in that that that's where the pin is. The pin is actually involved with Thunderbolt. Well, when her stepbrother has the pin, he's got it, and he vocalizes out loud, "I wish I was a superhero." Then he starts seeing "so cool" everywhere, and he repeats "so cool," and I guess "so cool" is kind of like the trigger word that activates the pin.
Yeah.
And out comes this blue three-horned genie guy, because that's what the pin is. It's a genie's lamp, basically. And he
Yep.
goes to try to start telling the kid some of the rules, but the kid just says, yeah, whatever. Okay, so there's rules. Gotcha. Anyway, let's go on. So now, how do you work? And we find out through trial and error that he has to be exact in how he says his wish. That's Genie Wishes 101 for us nerds. You know?
Yeah.
And then
It'd be precise.
you always got to be precise, because otherwise the genie will screw you on the wishes. They're not all Robin Williams, man.
Yeah. Now, he does have, unlike a normal genie, he has unlimited wishes.
Yeah,
So
unlimited
not a,
wishes, but we find out that you can't repeat a wish. So if you do a
yeah.
bad version of the wish, you can't reword it and do it again.
Yeah.
So you have to come up with that wish the first time right, or it's one and done. So that's an interesting little side variable on it. And so he basically said, okay, now I can be a part of the JSA because I got superpowers. And the rest of the team, well, like, for instance, Beth is like, hey, maybe he can get Chuck working again. And Courtney is like, hey, we're kind of lost on finding the shade. He can find the shade for us. And Pat is like, no, the Thunderbolt is too unpredictable. You still need to be sideline, kid. And her stepbrother plays on Courtney's sympathies. He's like, remember when you first became Stargirl and Pat tried to talk you out of it and stuff. Well, now it's the same thing's happening to me, and I just want to help. And I did help you guys take out the Injustice Society, and so they get it, but then they bring out this whiteboard and they start freaking brainstorming the perfect wish to find and possibly
Yeah.
capture the shade. They end up doing it. It basically becomes a really good locator spell, and they locate the shade in the magician's old house. So they break into the magician's old house without the stepbrother, and Pat gets him to promise not to use his powers while he's gone. Like he's a kid and he's going to listen. Right.
Yeah.
And they show up, and there's Mr. Civility having a spot of tea, and he invites them all to have a spot of tea with him. Didn't anybody teach you any manners? And he basically says that his goals were temporarily aligned with the Injustice Society, but he was never a member of the Injustice Society, and he thought that Icicle or whatever was a sociopath, and the only thing worse than the person who fights to rule the world is the one who does it as a cause.
Yeah, he's like, the only thing worse than someone that wants to destroy the world is someone that wants to save it. I believe was the
Right.
exact line.
Close. I think it was rule the world and save it, because he never tried to destroy it. He wanted to take it over. But anyway, during their negotiations, stepbrother comes running in because he has developed the perfect wish, he thinks, to capture Shade. Doesn't work. The Shade ends up being pretty freaking powerful.
Yeah.
Um,
He controls shadows.
yeah, and
And
he seems to be able to fight even the genie to some
yeah,
extent.
he fought against the genie and he beat
And
the genie
won.
really in that
And
conflict.
won.
Yeah.
Well, he's also supposed to be like hundreds of years old, so we don't even know nearly how powerful the Shade is. But they're almost painting the Shade like they're going to do a reversal on him and make him an ally by the end of the
Yeah.
season. Who knows? Because
Potentially.
we know the big villain is not supposed to be the Shade; it's supposed to be Eclipto, and
Yeah.
they're building up on Eclipto too, because that's been something. But
Yeah. And
anyway,
he's searching for Crypto. That's what the Shade is doing. He's
yeah,
trying to
that's really
find
what he's
Crypto.
searching for, and we never really get a chance to find out why because the brother interrupts. Then during like in the after battle kind of thing, the brother, while holding the pin, makes the idiot mistake of saying, "I wish the pin had picked somebody more worthy," and
Yeah.
the pin's gone. But the
Yeah.
pin
Oh.
appears to this kid of color hacker who, and we find out early in there that the pin will only work for somebody who feels like an outcast. You know, they're not the popular kids. They're not the one that fits in or anything. It's got to be somebody that's got that feeling of being a kind of alone in a crowd. Um,
Yeah.
and so the kid he goes to is a kid that basically just lives on his computer games and doesn't interact with other people. And he gets the pin, so we don't know what's going to go on with him. If he's going to end up joining the JSA or, temporarily show up like the Green Lantern did or what. But we do
Yeah.
know that
That was I was like, oh man, the moment that kid was sitting there, he's like, I really wanted to be a hero, and I thought this was gonna be my chance, but now I kind of wish it was in better hands. Poop.
Poof is like, oh, shouldn't I use the word I wish?
Yeah,
Because you got to be real careful around genies.
yeah.
They're always listening.
They're like Alexa, listening for that key phrase.
That's right. It's like your phone when it keeps interrupting you while you're going through your day because it thinks you said, okay, Google, and you
Oh
didn't.
God. Yeah,
You didn't say anything even close to okay, Google, but it started doing searches based on random words that came out your mouth.
yeah.
You look at your screen and then you've just looked up like pop culture of Xanadu or something. It's like, what the fuck? So anyway,
Yeah.
that's kind of our ending for the episode. Still,
There was one last thing I want to say on Stargirl. We did get one last little brief scene of the Shade, because he escaped, and the Shade is like standing on a rooftop or whatever, and he's got the box where the Black Diamond used to be in, that houses Eclipso,
uh-huh.
and he's looking frustrated as he says, he's like, he's gonna kill those damn kids, or he's gonna kill those poor kids, and he's looking stressed. So I think he actively is hoping to keep the kids from getting killed by Eclipso.
Yeah, that's the thing that made me think they're going to try to make him more of a sympathetic character than a villain.
Yeah.
Because I don't think even though he might have been kind of aligned with Icicle for a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I realized he got greatly offended when the girl with the goggles said, "You killed the original Hour Man," or whatever it was, whatever.
right,
And he's like, "Young lady, you speak nothing of which you know," or something like that. Like he was greatly offended to be told that he called a murderer.
right.
So I don't think he's a killer. I think he's a thief, but I don't think he's a killer.
Yeah, I think
That's
he
my
has a
thinking on it.
different set of moralities than modern moralities. but overall, he still values the life of children and innocence and stuff. He just may not value ownership so much.
Yeah.
Which,
And I think that fits with his. I've not read any comics with the Shade, but I've seen him appear a couple of episodes of like Justice League or Batman or something.
It's been a while since I've read anything with the Shade in it.
It's been ages, but if I remember right, I believe he was like that in the cartoons I've seen him in, where he was a thief, but he wasn't willing to kill. And I think I remember him like leaving a team because he found out that they were going to kill somebody or something.
Yeah, he's a little
bit
more
this ain't what I signed up for,
that.
and disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's getting really, really deep and interesting. Now we got 2 more shows to cover, and again, we're 20. Yeah, we have What If and we have Titans. Because we just did Stargirl. Then we have What If. We can go through What If kind of quickly though.
I didn't get to watch the new Titans. When does Titans release?
Thursdays.
Is it also on Wednesday? Thursday?
Yeah. So.
Well, maybe
the next one will be tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. Then I did watch it because I was thinking it. I was worried it was one that came out today as well, and I was like, oh crap, did I forget to check for that?
No,
but no, I watched an episode over the weekend.
Right, and that would have been the one with Blackfire and going under the secret base and everything. Yeah.
I saw that.
Well, we'll go through What If really quickly. This was a what if the Avengers had been killed instead of forming the Avengers. And it starts off with them trying to recruit Stark and Black Widow. Stark, it looks like his technology's actually taken over his body. And
it's a scene from Iron Man 2 where he is suffering that poisoning from that material in his chest. Right. And he's trying to develop a cure for it. And in the movie, Black Widow comes up and injects a thing into his neck that helps pull back the infection so he can think straight, so he can work. And that's what happens in the movie. But in this, he instantly dies.
He dies. And so Black Widow gets accused of killing Stark. And so she gets arrested. And even though Fury believes in her, he's got to play things kind of close to his chest, as he always does. And basically helps arrange for her escape. Now, then we've got the hammer coming down from Thor. And they're out there in the Thor area. And Coulson is reporting that this guy with really phenomenal hair, the gorgeous hair, is showing up, and he's beating his way to the hammer. And when he's like, okay, I need an eye in the sky, and so we get Hawkeye in the sky,
up in his little nest with his arrow.
With his arrow pointed at the guy. He's like, well, Coulson wasn't kidding about that hair. And he's told to hold his fire, and he's holding his fire. But then he lets the arrow go. But he says, I didn't shoot. But it kills Thor because Thor had not reclaimed Mjolnir, which means he'd not regained his godhood.
Yeah.
So he was able to
mortal,
die.
And
that brief moment, he was mortal. And so he was vulnerable. And when a Hawkeye's arrow hits, it doesn't miss. It hits a vital target if he wants a vital target. And that's what he was aiming for, just in case. But you don't know why he let the arrow go, because he never misfired in his damn life. But he did. And so he gets arrested. And
he gets arrested.
To talk to anybody. And then, Fury's like, he'll talk to me. And Fury goes in and goes and nudges him, and he's dead. So somebody has
Yeah.
somehow got into a locked cell at S.H.I.E.L.D. and killed Hawkeye. Okay, so we're now down 3 Avengers so far. No
Yeah.
Thor, no Hawkeye, and no Iron Man. They're dropping fast, kiddies. So,
Yeah.
when investigating Black Widow, Natalia, Romanoff is going to see General Ross's daughter, Betsy Ross, who, of course, was Bruce Banner's ex-girlfriend and ally.
Yeah.
And she says she wants her to look at this injector that she had used on Stark that Fury had slipped into her hand when he helped her engineer her escape. And although he didn't really have to do much, Black Widow's pretty badass all on her own. And they looked at the injector, and she's like, no, it doesn't even look like the injector injected anything. It was more like something shot out of the injector first, and that's what killed Tony Stark.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa. And then Ross shows up with his Hulkbuster crew, ready to catch the big green guy. And Fury has got a hold of Black Widow and said, hey, I'm going to need you to go find Banner. She says, it's okay. I think I already have located him. And he basically comes out of the walk-in fridge, basically telling Natalia not to bother threatening Betsy because nobody wants that. The green guy will come out, and then it'll be just a big mess. And then she warns him that somebody might be trying to kill you. He says, that's okay. I can't die.
Yeah.
Famous last words.
Yeah.
So in the battle, something gets shot at the Hulk, and suddenly he's blowing up like a balloon in oddball places. So his own muscles are attacking him, basically by exploding around him. They're like,
And
what
technically,
the fuck?
he gets shot. Like, the general and his army is just outside the building. It's that scene from the Incredible Hulk movie where Edward Norton's Banner was in that little bridge thing, and they put in like gas to try to knock him out or something. Except for this time, someone shoots Bruce Banner. He's not yet the Hulk.
Right.
They shoot Bruce Banner, and then
Which
that
gets him to
causes
turn
him
into
to turn into the Hulk.
And then the Hulk just keeps growing and swelling and exploding all over the place.
Yeah.
So, we're now down 4 Avengers. They're dropping like flies, kiddies.
Yeah.
Then they figure out that the answer is hope. When Natasha goes and breaks in the library and gets Coulson to give her his password so she can access S.H.I.E.L.D. files. And of course his password is like Steve, I heart Steve, like 0407.
0704.
Yeah, something like that.
It was 0704. It's July 4th is what it is.
But yeah. And because of course he's obsessed with Captain America. At this point in the thing, Captain America hasn't been found and defrosted yet.
Yeah.
But Natasha finds out that it all has to do with hope. She calls Fury's voicemail. Unfortunately, Fury's busy dealing with Loki and the entire freaking army of Asgard because the Asgardians have shown up to revenge Thor's death.
Yeah.
And they've basically given Fury has managed to negotiate for till the next sunrise, basically, to find the killer. And so she calls a voicemail and she says it's all has to do with hope. And, she says it just garbled enough that you're not quite sure if she said Hulk or Hope, but it's Hope. And then you see her fighting in this library with what appears to be an invisible foe.
Yeah.
Now, Fury is talking to Coulson and everything. Then he goes and he checks his voicemail and he hears the message from Natasha. And he's like, "What's the hope?" And he's like, wait, they're not the only Avengers. And he tells Coulson, just try to keep, follow my orders and try to keep them from destroying us. I'll be back. And he heads to the grave site of Hope Van Dyne. Now, if you people are fans of the Ant-Man series, they know that Hope Van Dyne is the original Ant-Man's daughter. And in this version, she was a SHIELD agent that died. And it turns out that she is the key because the person who's going around killing everybody is Ant-Man 1.
Yep.
Who basically...
Old Hank Pym, who is now wearing... Who's wearing what is similar to the...
Yellow Jacket armor.
Yeah, the Yellow Jacket armor.
Yes, because it's got the 4 retractable arm guns. And he's shrinking in and out and he's fighting. And it turns out that's how he was managing to kill people because he was in the tip of the injector that went into Stark. So he was able to kill Stark. Then he was the one that basically pinched a nerve in Hawkeye's hand, causing him to release the arrow that killed Thor. He basically killed Hawkeye while he was at it. Then he was in the bullet that had pierced Bruce Banner's skin, and then he's under the skin in the bloodstream, zapping his growth ray on different various particles under the skin of the Hulk. So basically he blows apart because his body is growing in uneven portions. Probably one of the only ways to kill the Hulk. And then he was the invisible quote-unquote fighter that Natasha was fighting because he was shrunk down in fighting her. And so it looked like she was fighting somebody invisible. No, she was just fighting somebody so small that you just couldn't see him.
Yeah.
And Fury ends up stopping Hank Pym with the aid of Loki.
Yeah.
Because Loki's in there impersonating Fury and surrounds Hank Pym, and Hank Pym is getting all confused and stuff. And they manage to capture Hank Pym, and they tell him that no, we honor her, we didn't kill her, blah, blah, blah. And
something that helped is that Loki could perceive Hank Pym even when he was shrunk down, and so he'd be really small and be flying at Loki in disguise as Nick Fury, and he would punch him in the air.
Right.
He'd punch him or slap him down.
Because of
it
his
was like, oh
Asgardian
shit.
vision. Right.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he's like, okay, well, I'm glad we're friends now, Loki. This is great. And Loki says, you know what? And then the next thing, we cut scene to the UN, where Loki walks up and basically says, well, I'm happy to announce that the other leaders of the world have all agreed under my rulership, and basically did a very a modified version of, I'm going to save you from the weakness of freedom speech that he did from the Avengers 1.
Yeah. And so now he's taken over the world.
So he's taken over the world, and the new Avengers team is starting to be assembled by Fury. Coulson manages to mention to Fury is like, well, it's kind of sad that the Avengers died before they ever did the actual thing that we now need them for.
Yeah.
It happens just after they died is the main reason we wanted to have the Avengers initiative in the first place. And he says, "Oh, we've got other candidates for Avengers," and he goes to basically you see him brush some snow off of some ice, and you see Captain America's shield under the ice, and then he looks over, and appearing like in a teleporter beam is Captain Marvel, uh, Carol Danvers. So
Yeah.
you've got the beginnings of the next Avengers team that's going to fight for Earth's freedom, and boom, that moves us on, and that was the end of that What If. A very intense What If, a highly enjoyable episode.
Yeah.
I loved it personally. Not as much as I liked the T'Challa episode, but it still was a great episode. Um, and it's showing more and more promise for the What If series. If they keep at
Yeah.
it this way, fast paced, good choice of alternate storylines, I think What If can be a long lasting series. It'll be absolutely awesome. Um, then finally, we're going to go real quick into the Titans. Not a whole bunch. We didn't reveal last week, but this week we can go ahead and reveal because it's been another week. At the end of that last week's episode of Titan that we last talked about, Hawk died. Hawk
Yeah.
exploded. They didn't manage to defuse the bomb in time, and
Kaboom. Kaboom.
and
Well, they
they
would have
basically
defused it in time if Dove
if
didn't activate the
yeah,
bomb.
if he hadn't masqueraded the bomb's triggering device as a gun and put it in her reach so she'd grab it and shoot it at him at the Red Hood, thinking she was stopping him, and then activating the bomb just seconds before Connor could put the antidote basically into him to stop the bomb.
Yep.
Seconds before. He's super speeding there when the bomb goes off. I mean, it's that close.
Yeah.
So we had
like Connor is super speeding and is like entering the room as the bomb is going off.
right. If Connor wasn't nigh on invulnerable, Connor would be dead too.
Yeah. And the
And
dog.
and Changeling would
Crypto.
almost be dead if it wasn't for the fact that Connor was able to kind of push him a little bit further out. Another big thing that happened no, that's that episode. Now this most recent episode, big thing is uh, Starfire, which is Coriander, is has been having these kind of blackouts and stuff, kind of linked to her sister, which we know is Blackfire, and they managed to track her to an underground bunker where Bruce trained near where Bruce trained the boys, um, just outside of Gotham City, near Wayne Manor and stuff. And there they find a single doctor monitoring one prisoner, and that prisoner is Blackfire. And they've done something in the cage. Basically, they've activated a gas that neutralizes their powers in the cage. So,
Yeah.
and he's basically saying, we're just going to keep her indefinitely prisoner because that's the most humane thing we can do. We don't want to kill her, but we can't let her loose either. And Coriander has to go back and release her sister because she can't truck with that. She's got to have her sisters back. And so that's one of the major developments. Dove moves to Paris because Dove's got to take a break after Hank died. We have not seen Raven for a couple episodes, and
We haven't seen her this season yet.
right,
Have we?
And I think she left at the very end of the last season, or the very first episode of this season. We might have seen her for a minute, but Changeling has also left because he was kind of insulted by Connor, talking about just changing into snakes and stuff, and just big deal. So I'm not sure if they're going to try to use, and we mentioned this last week, trying to use Raven and Garfield as a link to the Doom Patrol, which near the end of next month, Doom Patrol Season 3 comes out. So look forward to that, people. But it's another one we got to keep up with. We're running out of room. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And that's before any of the other stuff starts, like Constantine and Gotham PD and
And we're only a week and a few days away from Shang-Chi, the Legend of the Ten Rings releasing.
And I don't know if I'm even going to pay to see that, because it's going to be another Premier Access crap. I'll have to check to see if Allison and the kid both want to see it. Because if they both want to see it, then we'll go ahead and pay the $30, because that's cheaper than going to the theater. But otherwise, that one's going to have to back burner it for me, because I can't keep always paying for these things.
I don't know if it's going to be on Disney Premier Access.
It's supposed to be, but I don't know for sure. But you heard, from watching my Facebook and your one post, how bad my financials is. I live on less than $900 a month, and I'm only allowed to make another $904 before it screws up my disability. So,
yeah.
With my medical condition, I can't take just any job either. So I live on less than $900 a month. So I got to watch my funding. I probably have myself spread a little bit too thin anyway. And like I canceled a Patreon and Grubhub membership this last week just to make sure, because of other things that are going on. And I had to get a new cell phone because my cell phone died over the weekend, which increased my bill by like 20-some bucks a month for the new phone. And then I had to order a new case because they're never compatible with your old cases. But you got to protect them, but you don't want to get the service plan necessarily, because the copay on the service plan is almost never worth it. So,
yeah.
So it's a whole bunch of
it says here Shang-Chi will not be on the Disney Plus the day that it comes out in theaters.
Oh, wow. That's in first. So then I don't know if we're going to be able to see that at all, because Allison's still not theater ready. If she wants to see it.
It'll be available on Disney Plus in 45 days after it releases in theaters. Which
means it won't be Premier Access. It'll just be free.
Yeah.
At that point. But I don't know if I'm going to want to wait 45 days to see it. I did end up buying Snake Eyes the other day when it finally went on sale. G.I. Joe Origin Snake Eyes, and it was pretty good. But anyway, so we've got so much going on. That's the gist of the Titans episode this week. Was mainly that stuff with Coriander, was the big thing, and Connor trying to confront Red Hood by kidnapping Crane, the Scarecrow, and taking him to the old training cabin that Bruce had set up in the woods, that him and Black Hood should both be well familiar with, because they both trained there. And so he kind of sets up there to confront Red Hood. And that's kind of where we left off there, is with some of that going on. So we'll see tomorrow when I watch or for me it'll be tonight, sometime after about 1-2 o'clock at night. I'll watch Titans and get caught up for next week, and we'll go over that. Other than that, we're pretty much done. Remembrance just dropped, which is the new Hugh Jackman movie. It was excellent. I definitely recommend it, especially if you're a fan of a lot of those dreamscapey kind of movies like Inception and stuff. Plus, it's got the benefit of not having Leonardo DiCaprio in it, which I call it a plus. And it's got Hugh Jackman, which is another plus. But that's a great movie. You can come watch. We've got still so many new releases coming out in the next things because we're amping up into the holiday season of movies. Now, traditionally, holiday season is when certain major releases are going to happen. Like we do know that No Way Home is going to happen in November, December. We know that the next Fantastic Beast is supposed to be slotted for sometime there, but we haven't got a new teaser trailer for that yet. So it might get pushed back a little bit. I don't know. But they usually try to go for like a Thanksgiving release for Harry Potter movies. Traditionally, every Harry Potter movie is pretty much released during Thanksgiving time. So if they're able to get back on that schedule, then we'll have a Harry Potter type release coming out soon. We've got the Eternals coming up.
We got a new trailer for that recently too.
Yes, we did.
Good.
Oh, that was amazing! It was so much more in depth. I love that. So if you get a chance, look up the new Eternals trailer. We've got There Will Be Carnage coming out soon.
There's rumors. There's rumors, nothing confirmed, but there's rumors that Venom has been delayed.
Yeah, it might be delayed a little bit. Morpheus, the living vampire, is Morbius, not Morphe, Morbius, the living vampire, is coming out soon. We'll be getting the release of She-Hulk eventually for the TV series Gotham PD.
Yeah.
Like we said, Doom Patrol Season 3 starts next month.
I'm probably going to skip Gotham PD, I think.
I'm going to probably skip that one too. I might watch it, but that's probably not going to be one that I take to reviewing because we have got so many that we regularly review that if we would end up doing our whole show on reviews.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have any time for any of our other topics. So I'm thinking we're going to have to keep it kind of down now. For now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they ended Kung Fu, and so now I'm going back and watching all of Kung Fu, but I'm not going to review Kung Fu unless we have a dead week.
Well, you could give, after you watch the whole season or something, you could give like a brief spoiler-free review of the show to see, to one way or the other, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, the season.
And then the other thing is I'm keeping up with Roswell, New Mexico right now, but I'm not reviewing that just because there's so much to review already.
Yeah.
We're just getting overwhelmed with. This is the media heyday for nerds. We've got so much going on, and so much more that's going to be going on. That it's a great time to be a nerd, but it's a full time to be a nerd. There's just not enough hours in the day to watch everything. I mean, I'm lucky in one respect in that I'm disabled, so I can watch a little bit more than other people. Because when I'm at dialysis, I can watch shows. Late at night, I can watch shows and not worry about not making it to work because I'm really not allowed to work.
Yeah.
So I can do this a little bit more than some. But somebody like, Philip, you have to go to your job and everything, so you can't just sit and binge watch stuff all the time.
I got a full-time day job, and I also have a side gig job of writing, and
they're making you kind of interview people right now to try to fill a part-time job. And you're trying to get out of that. And like I said, I would love to take that job off your hands, but it would even that little bit of work, even if you dropped it back down to the $12 an hour, would push me over and make me lose my disability.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford that. So, even if you gave me full disability coverage through your company, it would not be enough to cover dialysis. The copay would kill me.
Yeah. So anyway, I gotta get some water to drink, eat a snack, and play some Metroid, I think. So I think I'm ready to head off of here.
I just chewed my last little piece of ice. So all my snacks and dinner is gone.
So I've been Lurchland.
And yep,
Be
you'll
sure
find them
to,
on Left Claw Studios.
Yep. And then, of course, you got Doc's channel, the Gamer Seuss channel,
which is one of the channels you could be watching this on. Keep an eye out for YouTube on Gamer Seuss. I don't know how up to date we are on the Springfield Game Expo YouTube channel yet, but every episode that we've done so far of this show has gone up on YouTube. So this one will go up sometime within this next week. And it'll be available in the Game Time playlist. So I'm still don't have enough viewers yet on my YouTube to have a static IP address for YouTube. So you just got to go to YouTube and type in Gamer Seuss.
Yeah, you need a custom URL, but yeah.
I'll get a custom URL, static custom URL once I get enough viewers. So make sure that if you view, you share your views and you like your likes and stuff. Doesn't cost you anything to like something or to subscribe on YouTube. So do that, because then I can eventually get a static IP, and then I can just share the IP address with you. And of course, for all your friends who can't make the 8 to 10 plus schedule every Wednesday night that we do, and I say plus because me and Lurch are almost always here till 11 at least. Maybe not Greg, but us two are always here that late because we always seem to run over. We would make the show officially longer, but then we'd run even longer. So to self-limit ourselves, we have to keep it set to 10 so that we only go over by an hour.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'll be going past midnight by the time we're done, especially with all the different shows coming out. But you can catch us here next week doing the same thing. You can catch us on our own channel doing our own thing. Don't know if Left Claw is really back to doing any real regular scheduled stuff yet. But
no, we're not.
And Gamer
Seuss,
the only thing I'm doing regularly is this show. I am contemplating putting up a video of me just doing a bunch of my cartoon voices, kind of like several YouTubers have done. I just have to kind of figure out the logistics of cobbling it together so I could do it kind of live and then share it to my YouTube. So I might do that sometime soon. I'm still working on my Japanese and with Duolingo and everything like that. But you can reach me at Facebook as Gamer Seuss or Clyde Star. Just look for the little cartoon beholder as the character on my profile, and that's me. Or you can reach Lurch here at Lurchland or Philip Landergan on Facebook. And like I said, we told you about our Twitch channels. Or you can get a message to us through Greg if you go to Holdfast Brewing Company on the third Wednesday of every month. Remember to support our local gaming stores, because your friendly local gaming store is your friend and ally. They're opening them up for more and more regular business right now, but still trying to be as careful as they possibly can while still remaining solvent enough to run a business. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye. Bye-bye.